boys are going to bring the heat today.
As the leader of the Booner Pack, I lead from the front.
All right, boys. Lock in.
It's our core foundation, man. Grit.
I'm fired up. I'm fired the f*** up, boys.
It's pumping right now. It's got my juices pumping, boys. All right. We are here at Crunch Time Sports. It is Thursday, August 21st. And it is a big, big day here in the Detroit Lions world. When we have a big show here at Crunch Time, it's just, it's another day and another week with Boone. Appreciate everyone tuning in. We do have a lot of people just kind of trickling in here to start the show. I see Ubaldo. Ubaldo said, Booner, time to react to the Doc comments calling you out. Did Doc call me out today? Did I miss something? I didn't tune into the Doc show. I saw he did an hour a little bit ago. I actually saw the Doc today, and he didn't say anything to me. So I don't know what he was calling me out for. Maybe it was the Hutch and the 30 million and our guy Rick Slick. I don't know if people are familiar with Ricky Slick on Twitter, one of the best insiders in the game. Him and I, we go long back. I like Ricky Slick, man. The Doc doesn't like Rick Slick, but I do. I'll pull him up later in the show. We'll pull him up. Mike Reed said he did Booner. What did he? Can someone fill me in here? There's only 24 hours in a day. I don't have all day to see all these different things. There's too much news and things going on around the sports world. I apologize. I think I might be losing my voice. It sounds like it's going away. Too much talking this week. But I was out at Lions camp today with the Houston Texans joint practice. I was out there with Easy, dose of Dion, who is supposed to be joining the show later today as well at 9:15, and spoke with a lot of different people. We actually got to see a lot of the beat writers today. It was like the last hurrah for open practice for fans and different people to go out there. Got to meet a lot of different fans and people who watch the show. So if you were there and I got to see you, I appreciate it. Appreciate the support as always. Mike Reed said, I just can't remember what the Doc said. Well, let me do this real quick. I know we're live on a show. Easy just texted me and said Kyle Finnegan walked right by us and we didn't even know it was him. He does look like an average dude. He doesn't look like a legit guy. I just got that text from Easy. Just a fan. He called you out for trusting other sources over the Doc. Listen, this is the problem. I'll say this, and if the Doc's listening, I appreciate it. I asked the Doc again. I said, hey, I have a couple guests tonight. Would you want to come on for 5 or 10 minutes just to really recap joint practice? I know we have Nolan coming on who was there, dose of Dion who was there with us, and we have guys doing it. What people don't understand is, especially with these joint practices, is when you're there, Lions offense versus Texans defense is going on at the same time as the Lions defense versus the Texans offense. So you can really only watch one field at a time unless you're like, I don't know, Spider-Man, or I mean, not even Spider-Man, someone who can see two things at once. I don't know if that's even possible, but that's the only way. You can't see both. So I was watching the Lions offense with Easy. But listen, there are so many sources around the NFL, and there's Rick Slick guy, and I'll pull him up. We pulled him up on the show before. I think people are familiar with Rick Slick, Ricky Slicky. Hold on, let me pull him up. I got to go to my account. He follows me. He doesn't follow Crunch Time. Rick Slick is a Booner fan. Maybe he likes Crunch Time. I don't know, but I know he's a Booner fan. So Rick Slick's the man. Let me go find Rick Slick real quick. Where is Rick? So the Doc, we've been going back and forth with Rick Slick, and he puts out, and he's gotten a lot of different things correct when it comes to contracts and trades and all of that. He gets things right. And when you find a source that, hey, is getting things right, and what the Doc doesn't like is the Doc says, well, the reason he's getting these is because he's just taking them from other people. I don't disagree with the Doc. I think the Rick Slick's is really good around the NFL at getting information and putting it out there. Because essentially what we do is our job, and what the Doc does is his job, and what we all do is our job. When we report things, we also get it from other people. I've talked to agents, I've reached out to people and everything. I have never gotten a tip like, hey, this guy's signing for this much. I'm not there. Maybe the Doc is there, and I don't know, but Rick Slick seems to be pretty locked in with that. So I do trust it. If that's what the Doc was talking about. So I do trust Rick Slick, and I trust the doc. Both things can be true. And I would love to have the doc back on to dispute that. After last night, I absolutely dunked on him and destroyed him when he came on our show and tried to call me out. So shout out to Doc. I do love him. I saw him today. I actually waited after practice to see the Doc. So I can't believe he did all of that after I stayed late to make sure I saw him. But yeah, there was a lot of things that happened at practice today. I watched the offense. I think Dion was able to see a little bit of the defense. I'm pretty sure when he gets on, we could talk to him about that. But it was pretty eventful. There was a lot of different things that went on. Obviously, there's some injury situations that we're going to talk about. Going to talk about the offense. Essentially, what we're going to do on the show today, I want to just and you know what I was going to do? I was going to use the Doc's article. He did a really good job at kind of doing a play-by-play on what happened throughout the joint practice. So at 8:15, I kind of want to go through that. If we have time, we'll talk to Aiden Hutchinson stuff. He did speak to the media today about his contract. Spoke about how his leg's feeling, a lot of different things. If we can't get to that at 8:15, we'll do it right after Nolan hops on at 8:45. And then I also want to do kind of, after watching and being at practices over the last few weeks, I want to do an offensive kind of preview for the season and go a little bit position by position, talk about expectations. I want to get the people's expectations, how the people are feeling, and I want to talk about what I've seen at camp, especially today and the last week versus the Dolphins. And then I also want to do the same thing for the defense, because I feel like there's a lot of conversations to be had. Cuts are going to be getting made soon. We only have solo Booner for so long, so I want to make sure I'm able to give my opinions out there while you guys have me full time here until Jeff gets back and we're able to do that. Because as soon as Jeff gets back on Monday, literally the next day is when they make cuts and they go from whatever it is, 96 down to 53, back up to 69, I believe, with the practice squad. So there's going to be a lot of changes, a lot of different movements over the next 5 or 6 days with this team. So, and what I'll do as well, if the people want to do this, being I was at camp today, if you guys want to throw questions from now until 8:50 or 8:30 until Nolan hops on, I would more than be happy to answer some questions in regards to the joint practices. Obviously, the first news that I do want to bring up, what is this? Okay. Let me bring up this news. The first news, and I actually tuned into the heavyweights a little, and shout out Easy. Did a solo Easy show. He texted me right after and said, "How did I do?" I thought Easy did a good job solo, man. You don't know how to do solo until you get in and do a solo show. It changes. It's different for sure. But coming out of training camp today, one of the biggest news kind of pieces was Detroit Lions center Graham Glasgow got up pretty slow from an injury today, went to the sideline and got looked at. I know when Easy talked about it on the heavies, if people were tuned into that as well, he had mentioned, well, it's not that big of a deal. He thinks it's something minor. Listen, it could easily be something minor. I do think this is one of those, at least in my opinion, there are a handful of injuries on the offensive side of the ball, obviously the weapons you have. But the starting center, Graham Glasgow, who you're expecting to kind of fill a massive role, that to me would be a massive loss for this team. So if it's like, I get it, hey, this is something minor, let's not push ourselves too far ahead on this and speculate whatever, all of that. I understand that. But at the same time, it's a massive position. So it's not really like, I'm not saying the injury is major, but I'm saying the situation is major. If Graham's down, let's not even say Graham's down long-term. If he's down for 2 or 3 weeks, let's say he's down 3 weeks. That's the Packers game. That's a big game for Graham Glasgow after being the center throughout the whole camp to be down. And I'll tell you what, and listen, I'm not a beat writer. I'm not a reporter, so I'm able to kind of speak a little bit more on what I saw and what I saw going on. And I did text the doc about it and just like, hey, this is what I saw, because the reporters are over on the other side, and me and Easy had a pretty good viewpoint of it. And maybe they did if they were in a certain spot. But when he did go down, like he was down for a couple minutes and then he got up on his own holding his left leg, and they pulled him behind. They were doing a situational drill. So it wasn't an 8-minute drill or anything like that. It was a situational. I think there was a minute left on the clock. Lions were down 3 and they had to go down and score at least a field goal to tie the game versus the Texans. And they were doing that drive when he went down, and it was right away, like probably the second or third play. And they pulled him off to the side behind the play. And this is like Cody put this out there. And this is why I told Easy, I said, listen, Easy, I get it. You want to say, hey, this isn't that major of an injury. It doesn't see it. He walked off. He did all that. But when I look over at the trainers and I'm watching it, I told Easy, I kept showing them, look what they're doing. And they're looking at his left knee. Now, I'm not reporting and saying that's exactly what it is. I'm just, as a spectator that was in the stands and looking out there, they pulled a brace off of his knee, and they're sitting there wiggling his knee around and moving his knee around for about 5 to 10 minutes. And then the Houston Texans did their part of the 2-minute drill, and then they pull Graham off to the sideline for about another 5 to 10 minutes, and they're sitting there messing with his knee, looking at his knee, moving his leg around and all of that. So the thing that I don't like about it and seeing it, and listen, he could be fine. I just don't like knee injuries, man, are especially like in the trenches. Those knee injuries, they happen quick. And that's where I kind of get a little worried to where, hey, it could be something minor. We've seen guys, Graham, play through it. We've seen Frank play through it. We've seen, Kevin Zeitler, Panay play through knee injuries. It just depends on what it is. And then he ended up getting up, and instead of staying out for practice, he just walked straight to the locker room by himself. No one was surrounding him. They just kind of let him hey, go inside, figure this out. So he probably went and got treatment to go see what might have been wrong. But that was kind of the situation that happened. And just like Schiff got said, and this is why I told Easy, hey, I think it's a little, again, the injury's not major, but the situation's a little bit more major than you're making it out to be. Because right now, that's your only legitimate center. It's Graham. And even Graham was a guard, and he moved to center for you. And this was a situation where I've said, hey, this is why you need to get tape reps at center. So if Graham does go down, he's not just stepping in and it's his first week at center. So that's where it's just a little hey, this is something to keep an eye out on. This isn't just a minor situation. It's something, hey, you need to make sure Graham's good. Hey, whoa, Coach Walk. Go have a nice dinner and drinks on me. Good job this week, Booner. Coach Walk, $100, man. This is why I love you. Me and Coach Walk go back and forth all the time, and sometimes it might get a little heated. But that's what brothers do. We go back and forth. We yell at each other. We argue, and a little bit of banter, as people say. So shout out to Coach Walk. I will. You know what? I'm going to make sure I go have a nice dinner this week, Coach Walk. I'm going to go somewhere nice. I don't know where, though. If anyone has any dinner recommendations, let me know. Let me know. I'm going tomorrow. We got the show. Yeah, Saturday. I'm going to be at the Tigers game Saturday. So if people are out there, I'll be out to the Tigers game. I appreciate it, Coach Walk. That's amazing. $100 donation. That is awesome. Phil said Taco Bell. AG's burner should have spent the money on $100 on a real fan. Fair enough. But yeah, so that was the Graham Glasgow situation out at camp. You could speculate all you want. I think it's just one of those situations to where you're kind of on the edge of your seat until you speak with Dan Campbell or someone who's able to give an update on that. I don't know. Maybe later tonight, if Graham's streaming on Twitch, we'll go in there and we'll see if he answers any questions about it. But until we know, I think it's something that Lions fans should be on the edge of their seat. What's going on with this one? I think you need an update. It's not a minor situation, as Easy keeps saying. And shout out Easy. We had a great day today. All the boys out there. It was great. Let's do this too. I want to pull up my tweet, just some of the takeaways from practice today, and then what I'll do is I'll bring up the docs article, and we'll go through the docs article about a little bit of a play-by-play, and then if anyone has questions about today, if you guys have specifics on what you guys want to know, again, I want to throw it out there. I didn't see much of the defense. When we looked over at the defense, I'll do this right away defensively. One, Aiden Hutchinson's a monster. There was every time it felt like we looked up, either Aiden Hutchinson or the interior of that defensive line was all over CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud, he made plays today because it's CJ Stroud and he is very good. He's a great quarterback. But I think it was Joseph Dion that brought it up that was spot on with it. He was like, CJ's getting the ball out so fast right now. And it's because he had no time, 0 time. And it was Hutch was in there multiple times. I saw some reports that he had 2 to 3 sacks for the Hutch rule. I know for sure there was 2 times Easy and I looked up. We were watching the offense, and then we looked over there, and instantly it was 100% a sack on Aiden Hutchinson. That was 2 times for sure. So there was multiple times. Looked like There were times where like TA, the Lions just put the video out. We posted on our socials of TA with the big pass breakup versus Nico Collins. It was kind of in the end zone. It was a great play. We got to see that live, and it was huge PBU from Terrion. But there were also, and I'll say this, I think the secondary looked good, but there were also times where we would look over real quick and we would see Nico Collins beating a TA one or two times. We saw him beat DJ Reed a couple times. Whether it was a completion or not, you could just tell the route was just, he gets open. CJ Stroud just wasn't able to get the throw out because of the defensive line. So when we do our defensive preview, that's something that I noticed today was, hey, if the DBs, and this is something we've never had in Detroit, actually, it was either, hey, our DBs are just getting absolutely cooked and the D line's getting there, but the quarterbacks are getting the ball out so fast, or two, the D lines, there's no pressure on the quarterback and the DBs are having to cover for 30 seconds, it feels like. Today, and you're starting to get that sense a little bit with this defense, is the linebackers and the secondary are so good in coverage right now, to where, yeah, when they do get beat, typically the times they get beat, someone's on the quarterback already. And that's where I think you start to find success is like a really good defense, is if you have that formula of both sides, like, hey, you're getting pressure on the quarterback and you're good in coverage, you're just not going to get beat. And even when you do get beat, you have the other part of the defense to kind of help you out. That was kind of the takeaways I got from the defense today. It was a little bit more even when it comes to like touchdowns and all that. Like the Texans were in the end zone a couple times. They did get some stops on defense as well versus the Lions offense. I would say personally, I think the Lions offense had a better day than that Texans defense. I think they got the best of them. And there were times where Derek Stingley and them looked good, but me and Easy were arguing on our walk back, and he was trying to say, oh, well, Jared there was a couple stretches in the red zone drills where the Texans defense or dominated the Lions, and I was like, what are we talking about here? There was literally a stretch of football, guys, where Jahmyr Gibbs, to start the red zone, and that was what Dan Campbell said that they wanted to do versus the Texans, is like red zone. To start red zone at the 20-yard line, Jahmyr Gibbs bounces it outside right, and it was basically one-on-one versus him and Derek Stingley, and he didn't even have to put a move on. He just with his speed. Derek Stingley could not catch him. And you're talking about just a pursuit drill. And Derek Stingley, even at any angle, there was zero chance of him ever catching Jahmyr Gibbs. And Jahmyr Gibbs just goes right around the corner of the offensive line, right to the outside to the sticks, and scores a 20-yard touchdown untouched in the first play of the red zone. And then I believe they might have moved the ball up the next play right after that to the 15. I think they might have been moving it up, or they were just kind of going back and forth. And then literally the next play, handoff to Jahmyr Gibbs to the left side. Same thing, bounces it outside, gets outside. Two defenders try to knock him off his path, and he just runs right through him into the end zone. Touchdown. And then the next play, I believe the very next play, Jared Goff finds Khalif Raymond wide open in the back, or not even wide open. Khalif Raymond ran one of the best routes I've seen. And I believe it was on Jalen Peachy. I believe that's who it was. I think it's their safety, Jalen Peachy. I could be wrong, but ran a sick route, boom, boom, and had Jared Goff found him right in the middle, and just 3 straight touchdowns to open up the red zone section, and dominated. And it was all day too. To start when they were doing 7-on-7, Amon-Ra touchdown, I believe Khalif touchdown, and then there was a 40-yard bomb to Jamison Williams on one of the best corners in the game, Derek Stingley. So it was just it was constant. It felt like this offense, one of the biggest things that I'm getting from this team right now is this offense is starting to find their rhythm a little bit. And I know a lot of people were worried about that early on. And then you see the Dolphins camp and you're like, well, this Dolphins defense is bad. I believe this Texans defense is one of the best in the NFL. We got to see their D-line today. Danielle Hunter, unbelievable. Will Anderson Jr., unbelievable. Even with them, excuse me, losing my voice. Hold on. Even with those guys, though, there were times. There was one time I'll say Will Anderson did beat Penei Sewell bad, and he got a strip sack on Jared Goff. Mitch Hughes, shout out Mitch too, by the way, SVSU alum. Both of us went to school with Trevor, Nick Whiteside. Is it worth going down to training camp? Anything to do besides watch practice? I mean, it's just really just watching practice. They've got food there, different things you can take pictures with. That's about it. I mean, obviously, if you want to get autographs, different things like that, you have opportunities to meet some of the players. But there is all of those different things as well. All right, let me see. Was there some more questions here? But that was kind of the takeaway today. Like, I think the offense had the best day. If you had to, I had to pick a unit. And I know defensively, the Lions defense had 4 interceptions today, which is huge. John Hughes, did it feel like old times, Booner? Is that about the offense? I'm sorry. I want to make sure, John Hughes. Is that about the offense? I'll come back to that one, John, when you re-answer that. How did the running game look in relation to the O-line and running backs? I'll say this. The running game, I think the passing game was a lot better today. There were obviously those couple Jahmyr Gibbs runs that were really good. Offensive line-wise, I think Jared Goff, outside of maybe a couple Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter plays, one thing I took away today was Jared Goff had a lot of time in the pocket today. I actually brought that up to the guys we were watching practice with. I had brought up, hey, it feels like Jared has a bunch of time. And there were a couple times he had to throw it away because just no receivers were open and he had forever, but it was just like nothing was getting open. But there was times where he was just sitting in the pocket, it felt like, for 10 seconds, just waiting. No blue whistle got blown because there was no one near him for a sack. And the old line was just, they looked good. They did. Let's see. Phil said best look for our center. Yeah, I don't know. We got to wait and see. Sorry, I'm getting through these comments here. I want to make sure. Jose said, where are the rest of the guys, Booner? The rest of the guys, Jeff's on a little vacation right now before the season starts. How did Hooker look? Hooker, I'll say what, Diggity Dog, he had like 1 or maybe 2 possessions where he played. And I think they went and scored a touchdown on 1 7-on-7 with Hendon Hooker, but he didn't. It was nothing. There was nothing, in my opinion, just nothing that stood out. Just a fan said, let's be honest, Easy just hates Goff. Goff could throw 4 touchdowns with Lions winning the Super Bowl, and Easy would say the passes were not very good spirals. I told Easy today we were leaving. He said something bad about the offense, and that was when I brought up 3 straight touchdowns. So I think you just hate. I just think you might want the offense to fail. You might want the offense to fail. Yeah, Shift God said this, and I hope I'll hope, because I don't want to put hate towards Grant Stewart. I like Grant Stewart. I think he's going to be good. But Grant Stewart today, I tweeted out when they did kick returns for Lions, they go from offense, obviously, and defense doing their 11-on-11, 7-on-7, whatever it is, and then in between each set, they do special teams, and they'll switch to special teams. So the first one, they'll start with Lions punt, and then they'll go back to 11-on-11 or 7-on-7, and they'll do Lions punt return, and then they'll do kickoff, and then kick return throughout the whole practice. The first kick return of the day towards the end of practice was when they finally got to kick return. Grant Stewart, just first kick return of the day, full sprint down the middle. Same situation, it felt like, as the preseason game, and it sounded like someone hit a bomb or something. Whoever punched the ball out, just an absolute, just perfect punch. Ball fumbles, and almost at the Colts, the Texans get the ball. So yeah, he's probably, I would have to say, if I know Dave Phipp's pretty locked in and like, hey, we have a standard here. I would have to think maybe Grant Stewart might not be returning kicks anymore. He might get a chance in preseason, but in the regular season, I would have to think it's like Khalif and Jackson Meeks or something. Coach Walk, how did Tate look against the Texans D-line? It's a good question. I didn't think Tate looked bad today. I think the one thing, like when we're watching it, the practices, typically when things stand out, especially offensive line-wise, for me at least, is when there is a big play that's made on a D-line, like a D-lineman. Like when Will Anderson beat Panay, it was obvious, like, hey, Panay's kind of on the ground, and that was his assignment, and then they got to Jared Goff. There wasn't many times, I don't think, today with Tate where and I can ask Nolan, and I'll ask around too, but I felt like just Tate had a solid day today. I feel like Tate's just been so solid, especially as a rookie filling in. And then today versus that D-line, I feel like he was just very solid. And like I said, it felt like there was a lot of moments where Jared Goff had a lot of time. So versus that D-line, I would have to think that's a positive. Burning issues. Booner, drink some lemon juice with honey to help your voice /throat. Yeah, I have some different things I do. I've lost my voice the last 3 or 4 years since like we started doing this. Probably like 4 or 5 times a year, it feels like. And I just get some tea, some green tea with some lemon or something in it, and I'm good to go. It just takes a day or so. the weekend will be good to recover. John Hughes says, Doc said that Will Anderson smoked Panay today one time. That was what I was talking about, John Hughes, was that play. That was the one play. Jay Hart, by the way, shout out to Jay Hart. I actually met Jay Hart today. Just randomly just popped up and was like, Boone, it's Jay Hart. Shout out to Jay Hart. It was good to finally meet him. Hey, Booner, what do you think about Tim Patrick taking so many reps with the twos today in Tesla? It's so nice. So I actually got people that tweeted at me today because what happens to start practice is they'll do their warm-ups, and essentially Jared Goff, Sudfeld. Whoa, not Nate Sudfeld. He actually just signed somewhere yesterday. Allen, Hooker, and Goff, they go through their reps and they're throwing, they get their reps to receivers and they're going through their progressions. The one thing I noticed in being at different practices was Jared Goff is always going to throw to guys, the top guys on the depth chart, the wide receivers. At times at the start of camp, it's been Tim Patrick, and he rotates to make sure he's getting with the guys that he's going to be throwing to consistently. Today, that started off where obviously Amon-Ra and JMO, but then he was also switching and making sure he was throwing to Khalif and Tesla, not to Tim Patrick. And then I started getting tweets at me today when I was putting out there, hey, Tesla's getting a lot of those looks, but also Tesla's still running with the twos. So there was kind of that scenario. And then people were tweeting like, why is Tesla still with the twos? Switch him out for Tim Patrick. Well, for people that want to know, Tim Patrick's also running with the twos. It's Khalif Raymond that's getting the wide receiver 3 reps. And he had a hell of a day today too. Khalif Raymond did. So those it's really Jamo, Amon-Ra, and Khalif right now that are your 1, 2, 3. That are essentially getting all of those first team reps. Now, I don't know if that's more so letting Tim Patrick get back from injury and back into things, or if it's that's kind of the way the whole thing's kind of working out right now. So I'm interested that's something definitely to keep an eye on. So a lot of people were actually tweeting at me about that, asking why isn't Tesla with the ones and Tim Patrick is. They both were running with the ones. Here, let me see if I have any more questions, and then we'll get Nolan in here in just a minute. Got a boy Juan Booner, you killed it the whole week. I appreciate it. Got a boy Juan. It's the week of Boone, solo Boone all week long. It's been fun. We got 2 more days. All right, let's bring in a guest because I'm pumped up here for this one. We're gonna start off. We have 3 guests today. The first of the 3, good friend of the program, and you know what? I hope I don't mess the name up, because there's two different ways I could say it right now, and I hope I hit it. Nolan Bianchi. Did I get it right? Did I kill it?
You nailed it. You absolutely nailed it. And without anybody's help either. Let's go.
Nolan Bianchi of the Detroit News, beat writer. Nolan, I appreciate you joining the show. I know all the guys aren't here today. It's just me, and it was good to actually to see you today out there at camp finally.
Yeah, it's good to see you as well. Nice to finally meet you, and happy to be here for some solo Boone.
Let's go. Hey, I appreciate it. It's different doing like a solo show. I'm so used to having someone with me.
My first foray into podcasting, I did Lockdown Red Wings, and I was like, yeah, I'll just do that show myself. And then 2 weeks in, I was like, I gotta get somebody in here to bounce my thoughts off.
Yeah,
it's really tough. It's tough.
Just going back, it feels like you're just talking to yourself. I'm on like day 3 or 4, or what today is, day 4 or day 3. Day 4. And I feel like I'm going crazy. I'm just not talking to anyone. And obviously I love having guests, but bouncing the thoughts off is the biggest thing. Nolan, I do want to ask you, and I wanted to make sure, were you today, I know you guys, sometimes everyone does like a split watching offense, defense. What side of the ball were you watching today at the joint practices?
I was watching offense, and then my B partner, Richard Silva, was watching defense. So
okay. Yeah. So I'll start off with the offense then. I want to kind of get your thoughts on, and actually I was just talking about it, so you probably heard it, the wide receiver position. I've talked to a lot of different people this week, Corey, John Macaroon, and kind of getting their thoughts on what's happened in this wide receiver room, from all the way from like Tim Patrick and Tesla to the back end with like Jackson Meeks and Dominic Lovett. How do you kind of see this thing playing out? And then especially today, you get to see a lot of those guys get a lot more reps, it felt like, out there. And then obviously Saturday, you'll get to see a lot more of those guys. What are your thoughts on how this thing will play out?
Yeah, it's kind of like what you said. I think Khalif Raymond is getting a surprising workload. Like you look at his last 2 years, 27% offensive snaps, 30% offensive snaps. It's definitely like a way higher rate of him being on the field in these practices so far. And whenever they have had a third wide receiver on the field, it has been Khalif Raymond instead of Isaac Tesla or even Tim Patrick, like you mentioned. So I've been a little bit surprised by that, just because like Khalif's place in the offense has been so defined as like the wide receiver 4 gadget guy. Like going into last year, you knew he was quote unquote, you knew he was the third guy on the depth chart, but like they were very open about needing a wide receiver 3. And I don't really know that a whole lot has changed to Khalif Raymond's game in the last year. So that tells me like they like made a conscious effort to maybe incorporate him more in the game plan and use his skill set, because he is a valuable piece. He has a distinct skill set. But that being said, I still am a little bit surprised that we haven't seen more of Tesla out there, because he's been doing so well. And, you know, he's been going against the 2s. He's been dominating against the 2s, but that to me means it's time to move him off to the 1s. And he just provides something unique. So I've been surprised that they haven't rotated him in there even just a little bit more. Like, even if it was just, you know, they come out, they do a team period where they have 4 or 5 offensive snaps with the first team, like get him out there for 1 or 2. And, you know, maybe they're just trying to make sure that the reserve quarterbacks have some decent wide receivers to throw to. But at the end of the day, you're getting ready for the season. You're getting ready to try to win a Super Bowl. I'd like to see Tesla out there a little bit more.
Yeah, I do think that was weird. Like, at least the practices I've been to, I don't think I've seen Tesla at all with the 1s. Not once.
It's been like that all camp.
That feels weird. That feels like they should be getting him kind of ramped up to be at least have action with Jared Goff. But there are, like, obviously the conversations that he still throws or catches with Jared Goff, just not in those kind of situations. What did you take away too? And I had put it out there. I guess Easy did too. Me and Easy were up there, and we were trying to race to put it out. But obviously the Graham Glasgow feels like it's a bigger situation. Obviously, we don't know how major or minor the injury is, the leg injury. But obviously, him being like your center, especially losing Frank this last offseason, what are your thoughts on that? Like, do you think that if he's out week 1, do they just slide Tate over, and then who fills in that guard? How does that work out if there is something going on?
Yeah, I didn't see the injury like I saw when it happened. I saw him on the ground after the play, but I didn't actually see what happened to him. And then I was kind of keeping an eye on him. Looked like maybe he was heading off with a pair of trainers, which is probably not the best sign. But again, you know, these things do happen. Like, guys will get carted off, and then it'll be like, oh, they're fine. You know, just training camp, it seems like they're a little bit more cautious with those things. But yeah, if he can't go in week 1, like, that is a major, major concern to me, because Tate hasn't gotten center snaps since the 3rd day of training camp, and they kind of made a conscious decision to move on from that pretty quickly. And I know we got all that time in the spring, and maybe that does help him. Maybe that does allow the Lions to move him over to center in a real game. But I think for the most part, like, the whole idea of putting him at center was working in tandem with this idea that Graham Glasgow would be next to him and be able to help him through some of the mental side of things, the checks and things like that he has to do. And if Graham Glasgow is not there, I don't really know that Tate is going to be prepared to do that. And, you know, so I think that is a big deal. And that leads me to believe that in a pinch, they would probably pull somebody up from the reserves, whether it be Kingsley Agwakun, whether it be Michael Neese, whether it be Tristan Colon, who's not exactly healthy right now, but who knows, as we get closer to week 1, maybe that status changes a little bit. But yeah, I mean, it's a big problem that I don't necessarily know they have a digestible solution for. You know, you can put Kingsley back there, or, you know, you can put Michael Neese back there, but those guys, you know, they're on the roster bubble in some ways. And Kingsley, I've had him making the 53-man roster just because of the fact that they don't really have anybody else to play center. They don't have a Graham Glasgow at guard who can slide right over and has ample experience doing so like they have in years past. It's Tate Rowledge, who's never played any center. It's Christian Mahogany, who's never played any center. And then behind them, your options are a bunch of guys who have never taken a meaningful NFL snap. So it's definitely a concern if he's not able to go week 1, or, you know, even worse, has to miss more time during the season.
Yeah, I feel like today was a little bit of an eye opener of the depth at that position, where it was like, wait, if Graham does go down, who's up next? And that was actually something when camp started that I had brought up with Tate. Was I had always been. I started off on the side of, hey, I would rather have Tate go center, because if he gets those reps all camp, then like he's ready to go like instantly. Because at some point he's probably gonna have to play center, whether it's injury or next year. And then obviously Graham, the thing that turned me was Jared Goff and them basically being like, hey, we would rather have Graham just as being a vet and having to do that job instead of a guard and essentially center at the same time.
Yeah, and Graham said that too. He said like he likes playing center, he enjoys the mental challenge of it. And then he said like if that's what their plan is to put me at guard and then have me do all the center stuff, like I'd rather just play center. So yeah, I thought that it was pretty settled and things were going well. Like, there were definitely days where DJ Reader and Tyreek Williams were getting the best of them, but I think that's more of a compliment to those guys than it is a knock against maybe the interior players on Detroit's O-line.
Yeah, definitely. And I do want to, before we switch to defense, I want to bring up John Morton, because you've been at practice all training camp. So you've been able to kind of see the progression. One thing I felt that like since the first camp practice that I saw to today, you could definitely tell the offense is getting more confident in like that play calling and everything's getting kind of a lot better. What is your takeaway so far? Like the John Morton thing? I know a lot of fans are like questioning it. I actually heard a lot of fans today at camp that were talking to us and coming up to us, and then they would be like, bring up John Morton and be like, the play calling actually looks really good today. And I was like, I think this is starting to come together and the worries don't need to be there as much. Do you get that same feeling, or how do you feel about the John Morton training?
Yeah. And I've pretty much been there like since the start of camp, like the when you look at that 2022 room and like the guys who had an impact on that offense when the Lions offense first started picking up, it was Ben Johnson, obviously first and foremost. It was Dan Campbell, Jared Goff, and John Morton. Those are kind of the four guys who I think I've seen credited with putting that whole thing together. And 3 of the 4 of those guys are still here. So, I was never overly concerned. And one thing I have always been impressed about with Campbell is he is like a heavy scrutinizer. Like he is willing to do what needs to be done. He's ruthless in that way. Anthony Lynn, I just brought this up on an appearance I did a couple days ago, but Anthony Lynn, 10 games into his first year as offensive coordinator, Dan Campbell was like, this isn't working. We got to pull the plug. All of a sudden, everything turns around. And since they fired Anthony Lynn, like they have had a legitimately good to elite offense pretty much the entire time. So I think very highly of Dan Campbell when it comes to making those decisions and making the right decisions for his football team. And then in terms of what we've actually seen out on the field this training camp, like don't get me wrong, they've struggled a lot of days. And, there were times where it's hard to contextualize because they're going up against the same defense every single day. And you're like, well, this defense kind of keeps getting the better of them, but this defense is also really, really good. And the only real piece that they're missing out there right now from their starters, they missed some time with Terran Arnold and Kirby Joseph. Both those guys missed a little bit of time. But then Ali McNeil, he's really the only piece that's been missing for the entirety of camp. And so he's obviously a really important player, but what that tells me is that this unit is good as an entity. And like there were also times where the defense was winning because Taylor Decker was not there, and then all of a sudden Jamarco Jones and Dan Skipper got hurt, and then all of a sudden it's Giovanni Manu playing against Aiden Hutchinson and Marcus Davenport, and it's like, well, that doesn't work. And they were getting blown up for obvious reasons. And so I think the joint practices against Miami and then what we saw today, I think really painted a clear picture of maybe where this offense is at as opposed to what we've seen from them playing against the Lions defense, because last week they faced a defense that was really bad and they absolutely killed them, like play after play after play after play. Today they faced a defense that was really good and they won some, they lost some. Like they threw some heavy blows. I mean, you saw it there today, 7-on-7 period. They killed them, which I don't really put all that much stock into 7-on-7, but I think for the most part, they struggled to run the ball, but Goff was still hitting a lot of passes. There were a lot of drops today, which I thought was kind of out of character for those guys. Tim Patrick, JMO, Khalif even dropped a pass in the situational drill at the end of practice. But I think on the whole, you have all these great players and you have a scheme that looks pretty similar to what we've seen from this team the last couple of years. So I think they're going to be fine ultimately.
Do you think too, because I had the thought today with Jared Goff, because today it felt like Jared Goff was really good and it felt like he did have a lot of time in the pocket a lot. There was a practice a couple weeks ago where the Lions offense just got destroyed and then everyone started coming out and saying, Jared can't play outside of a Ben Johnson offense without Frank and this. I feel like since then, Jared's just like complete uphill and he has looked really good. And like today, like you said, there were the drops. If there weren't those drops, it felt like he would have had almost – there was a couple maybe plays here and there he couldn't get the ball off. There was the strip sack. Do you still like? I know, just like with the offense, but with Jared, do you get that same sense that hey, he's still playing at an extremely high level, and he just keeps getting better every week?
Yeah, he's been fantastic. Like point blank, no question about it. When he has the time to make the throw, he makes the throw. He puts it on a dime. There was that Amon-Ra St. Brown highlight clip against the Dolphins that was going viral last week, and I tweeted out, and like half the replies were like, "This is just as much of a Jared Goff highlight tape as it is an Amon-Ra St. Brown highlight tape," because he was really that good. And from what we've seen all camp, he's been money. He's struggled a little bit connecting with maybe some down the field stuff that he seemed to have figured out. But I think that was a result of not trusting the protection to his blind side and knowing that Aiden Hutchinson was going against Giovanni Manu when he couldn't see them. And I do think that disrupted the timing, because that is one way to get to Jared Goff, is to disrupt the timing and of that entire operation, and all of a sudden things start getting a little wonky every now and then. But for the most part, man, when he lets the ball go, it's going exactly where he wants it to, and most of the time his receivers are making the play.
Yeah, there was a couple throws today where I was like, there's no way he's about to get this off. And then he gets it off, and it's in like the tightest pocket, and it's a completion, and you're like, how did this guy just make that throw?
Yeah, like the one he threw the pass to JMO, it was like a skinny corner route. He put it right in the next to the back pylon of the end zone, right between the safety and the corner, and JMO couldn't get his feet down. But it was just like bam, like vintage. That is what I come to know as like vintage Goff now. I think when I think of Goff, I think of like down the field, plant your leg and drive it throws. And obviously that's a little bit of a different one. You're getting air under it and stuff like that. But he's still beating both defenders to the spot.
He's got an arm. I don't think he gets enough credit sometimes.
People
talk about the, what do they call it? Easy, and them always call it the duck. And I responded. So the duck threw for 4,500 yards. It flew for 4,500 yards. That thing's beautiful. All right. Defensively, I do want to ask, I know you weren't watching the defense. I'm sure you have an idea of what happened today. I did see the reports, 4 interceptions in the defense. It was kind of more so, it felt like an evenly matched joint practice than it was versus the Dolphins. Did you have some takeaways from defensively with your team there that saw, that matchup?
I gotta be honest, yes, but I didn't necessarily read them. From what I understand, it was a pretty even day. I was talking to my coworker Richard Silva, and we were walking off. I was like, "You feel like anybody won today?" Because I didn't feel like anybody won on the Lions' offensive side of the ball. Like I said, I feel like they were trading punches for most of it. Lions scored plenty of touchdowns. Texans had plenty of pass breakups and whatever. But on the defensive side of the ball, when I asked him that, he was like, maybe the Texans won like 55-45. And I was like,
okay, wow.
Okay. That's pretty even. He said if it wasn't a dead push, it was about 55-45. So, I got to be honest. I didn't necessarily read the entire part of that. I got to do that a little bit later tonight. But their defense has been playing phenomenal. And when you get these teams in there and you can kind of stack up against different competition, and the Texans are a great team. Like, I think that's one thing that, like, I don't know if people fully recognize and appreciate. They probably do, because CJ Stroud has been excellent for 2 years, but and the Lions played them in a crazy game last year. But this Texans team is really good. Like, they have the same aspirations that the Lions do going into this year. So I think that's ultimately a good thing. When you come out and even if you don't have a day where you dominate, even if you have a day where you get beat on a lot of reps, you can learn from that. And this is a team that will learn from those mistakes, and all work with this team seems to be good work. So, 55-45, but it's all good in the end.
Yeah. So a couple more things on defensively. I did see you put the video out about Hutch. How do you think the contract stuff works out? Because I think it's interesting. I felt like personally, like, Brad's gotten the contracts done with extensions. He's got those usually done like around the NFL draft. And I think Hutch might be the first one. Obviously JMO too, and he's made it clear they're waiting on that. But Hutch is the first one that he hasn't said they're going to wait, that they didn't get done by the draft. So I would have to think personally that maybe that's just something on Hutch's team. Maybe they're saying, hey, let's wait. I don't know. But then today he says, I've just been hands off. What is your opinion on that? How do you think that whole thing works out?
Yeah, my whole thought with that situation is that, like, it would have made no sense for him to go out and be the first edge rusher to sign. Like, you look at what's happened this summer, the top of the market has been reset 4 different times, and that's excluding a whole bunch of contracts that have landed somewhere near the top. I think it's like even So the highest paid edge rusher has jumped like $10 million in or I think it was like 7 million maybe. The fifth highest paid edge rusher, 8 months ago, he's getting paid $10 million a year less than the fifth highest paid edge rusher is right now. So this market is just exploding. And, obviously not in those negotiations, can't speak to exactly what's going down, but when you're negotiating with a player that's coming off an injury, it's just business to negotiate against that injury. And I do wonder, how that factors in to the whole situation. And plus the fact that from Hutchinson's perspective, he's thinking, okay, this negotiation is either going to be not taking into account the fact that he was probably going to win Defensive Player of the Year last year. It was at least going to be, look like a top 3 guy in that regard. Or they're going to or they're going to negotiate against this injury. So there's like kind of two things working against him, is like he didn't get to put the full like breakout season on display. And like I said, coming off the injury, I think that based on how they've talked about him publicly, like Holmes and Campbell being like, he's the same guy, he looks even better, all this other stuff. Maybe that's not happening as much as it would in a normal case, but I just didn't really think it made a whole lot of sense for him to sign that deal. Then you have Trey Hendrickson, Micah Parsons, 2 guys who still need to sign and could very well end up, if not resetting the edge market altogether, finishing somewhere in that 3rd or 4th, highest paid range. So I think if I had to guess, and this is pure speculation, just, how these things work is, I would guess it's probably on Hutchinson's side because, like you said, Brad Holmes has been very proactive with this, and the fact that it hasn't gotten done, and Holmes said a couple weeks ago there hasn't been any intense talks. That leads me to believe it's probably on Hutchinson's side, and honestly, I do not blame him in the slightest.
Yeah, we've had conversations about the contract and Hutch and all of that, and I've had kind of two weird takes with it, to where I think right now, and I've put it out there, like when Hutch went down last year, I think he was the best defensive player in the NFL. I know there's Myles Garrett, but I think it was clear that in that moment he was the best. And in camp, it feels like the reports, and we all see it, like he looks like he's better. So I've put out there, and I've said the last couple months, I think Aiden Hutchinson's the best defensive player in the NFL. And I get he's gone up against backup tackle, like all of that. I know, again, Myles Garrett, there's these guys out there, but the guy's incredible. But then I'm like, on the other side, when we talk about his contract, I'm also the one that's saying, like, if I'm Brad Holmes, I just don't know if there's a world personally, like, there's the projection, but it's hard to give, in my opinion, like a $40+ million, I don't know, to reset the market, 43, 44, whatever it's going to be, that deal over Myles Garrett without, to a player that really hasn't won Defensive Player of the Year yet or All Pro. And it's like, you want to see that for a full season. So it's like, it's weird.
Right. Exactly. And honestly, if you're the Lions, like, you should have made this deal like yesterday. Like,
Agreed.
as soon as March 12th, I think, was the day that they could re-sign him at 4 p.m. They should have said, like, if it were up to them, I'm pretty sure he would have signed at 4:01.
Yeah.
But yeah, and like I said, like, I am imagining that is the conversation that's being had in these negotiations. Yep. And it just is the way things work. It's the business side of things. You hear all the time about, like, in other sports, players in hockey or baseball or whatever, they go to arbitration and they actually have to, like, stand there in the courtroom and, like, hear their GM negotiate against them and just saying the meanest things they can possibly think of because they're talking to a literal judge trying to get the salary cap number down. And that can ruin relationships, and that's why agents exist. But I mean, that has to be playing into the equation here.
I do. One last thing, actually, maybe I have 2 more things, quick things. Zadarius Smith, do you think the Lions get this thing done? Is it something where it's like, hey, he's on his last vacation? When I talked to John about it a couple days ago, he said next Tuesday, if it's going to happen, it's like as soon as that 53-man roster happens, you're probably going to see Zadarius Smith sign on the paper there. Do you think that they do it? Or if not, do you think there's going to get another edge in this room, like a Jadeveon Clowney, or they go out and get someone? Because last year they went and got, like, a position of need, wide receiver. They went and got that. And there still feels like, especially with some of the injuries recently with Ahmed Hassani, and it's like, hey, you probably need to add a little bit more depth. Do you think they do something if it's not Zadarius?
Yeah, I think so. And I do, like, I think there's a general, like, just talking to my fellow beat members, I think we all think that there's a pretty decent chance that he ends up back because, like, Brad Holmes keeps making flirty eyes with him whenever he talks about him on like 97.1 The Ticket and stuff like that. Like, oh, we're still in contact with him. And he even said, like, I'm not saying that he wants to miss training camp. I'm just saying, if that had to happen, I don't think he'd think it's the worst thing in the world. I'm paraphrasing there, but yeah, I think that is very clearly the situation that is playing out. Is they kind of put this on the back burner with the idea of revisiting it. I can't remember exactly how old Zadarius Smith is. I think he's like 33. And if you're, that age and, having a great summer with your girlfriend who may or may not be broken up with at this point, maybe you just want to chill for a little bit. Maybe you just want to not go to training camp. Training camp sucks. That is what we hear from players. It's long. It's a grind. And at a certain point, you probably don't need to go through it as much as you did when you were a younger player. So, yeah, I think that's something that they're absolutely going to pursue. And not just with the Hosning injury, but today we hear Josh Paschal is going to be down for a little bit earlier than previously thought. He was supposed to start practicing at the beginning of September. And that looks like it's going to take a little bit longer as well. So I'm so curious to see how this shakes up because you do have Nate Lynn. You have Isaac Uku, two guys who, if you would have asked me, at the start of training camp, I'd say they're probably going to be on the outside looking in. But with these new injury developments, you might need one, or you're probably going to at least need one, maybe two. So that's interesting. And then kind of having a natural fit for Zadarius to where you can bring him in. And that's the interesting thing about him is he came in and he played all over the defensive line last year. Like he wasn't just a pure edge rusher. So him, Marcus Davenport, Aiden Hutchinson, like there's room to fit them all on the field at the same time. And, I think that he ultimately is a guy who you know what you're going to get. He's still playing at a very, very high level. I think people are kind of I don't want to say disrespect, but underappreciate just the production that he has on a year-over-year basis. Like I was talking to somebody and they were like, Brad Holmes didn't do everything he could to get a premier edge rusher into the deadline. I'm like, the guy he got was top 10 in sacks and pressures after he came over. Like, how can you honestly tell me that? Like, it's so hard to acquire these guys in football. It's why there aren't a lot of blockbuster trades in football relative to other leagues, because it's just difficult. There's all this, there's never mind the salary cap implications and just the way they do things so wonky. But yeah, man, I don't know. I just, there are definitely going to be players who do get cut on roster cut down day, who are available, a la Tim Patrick. But at the end of the day, I just don't know where you're going to get more value than you're probably going to get if you bring back Zadarius Smith.
I agree. Even at the deadline, he was like the best edge rusher that was moved, and even Brad said that he was like we got the best edge rusher essentially.
Yeah, and he said it was like being in the dental chair for like 6 days just to get it done. And so it's just not easy to do. Yeah, and I think people underappreciate that sometimes.
Are you on the side? I know a lot of people are there's people arguing the Trey Hendrickson stuff, and I saw the Brian Branch, all of that. Where are you at with that? Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure because I went on a rant yesterday about it, and it was just like, what are we doing here at this point? It's just ridiculous conversations, in my opinion.
Not only does it, I don't know, if you want to just talk about whether it actually makes sense in terms of value gain, value added versus value loss, I don't know. Maybe there's an argument in there. Pass rusher is a super important trade, but you just the whole Trey Hendrickson the Lions cannot afford Trey Hendrickson. It just is what it is. They might have room on the cap sheet this year, but they're saving as much of it as they can, because when you look to the 2026 balance sheet, they're already $50 million in the hole. $50 million in the hole that they have to dig out of. And I don't think it's going to be all that difficult to do. They're going to, restructure probably a bunch of deals and everything's going to work out in the end. But when you're starting from that place, when you're living paycheck to paycheck and all of a sudden, you're already behind, you missed a payment or something. And then all of a sudden, that your next paycheck, which is usually just barely enough to get by, you automatically got to take out $200 to $300 because you missed a payment last year. And so it's this is just starting a bad cycle of that you feel like you're never going to be able to catch up to. And that's what I think the idea like of trading for a Trey Hendrickson is going to do, because it'd be one thing if he was a rental. Like if he was a rental, all for it, go for it.
Yep.
The entire dispute with Cincinnati is that they won't make him one of the highest paid edge rushers in the league. You can't afford him.
Yeah.
Can't afford him. End of story.
That's what I've been preaching that for the last couple months. I've been in so many arguments with people, and I'm like, all right, if you really want it, I would love for you, like, do a PowerPoint for me and break down the money. And they're like, well, that's not much. No, you can't say it and give out these takes and do that if it's like, hey, it's impossible. You can't pay 2 edge rushers $40 million and expect to keep a team
and
together
a quarterback
and
$50 million, and an offensive tackle $30 million, and a wide receiver $30 million, and everybody else is coming down the pipe. Gibbs, JMO.
Yep.
If they got to make a tough decision there, like tough decisions. That's one thing that's interesting is they haven't had to make a truly tough decision yet when it comes to like a big money player, homegrown talent. Like I'm trying to think of some of the guys that maybe they've had to let walk. Kevin Zeitler, a $9 million player, good player for sure.
It hasn't been one of those top tier guys yet, like top tier.
That is such a different level of money and investment and all of those sorts of things. So, yeah, I don't know.
I gave someone the situation the other day. I put out a guy like Brian Branch, Gibbs, JMO, Laporta. I think it was those 4. And I said, you can only keep 2 or 3 of those 4. Who are you choosing? And I was like, that's essentially, and like, even if you do a deal like the Trey Hendrickson, you're essentially making, it's not even 3 of those 4. It's like 2 or 1 of those 4. It's like, now you have to make that decision. And it's like, that's where Brad's kind of dealing with right now. And that's not even with like, there are other guys in that building, like DJ Reader, who's due. Like he's done. It's like, you just walk away from him. Like it's a tough job that Brad has. And I think a lot of people, like those unrealistic takes, they put me over the edge sometimes. They really do.
Yeah.
Do you have time for one more question? I just want to ask about the preseason game. Just a couple players or guys that are on the bubble that you're going to, at least for the people that are watching, to keep an eye on, offensive, defensively, just bubble guys that have a chance to make the roster or are probably just out.
Well, we'll start with offense. Hendon Hooker obviously is the big one. I think a lot of people are ready for the Lions to cut bait on him, and I get the frustration absolutely. And I think we actually talked about him the last time I was on here. But the thing with the whole thing with that to me is like, if you cut him, if you waive him, which is what you have to do, there's, I would say, a 95% chance that he's going to get picked up by another team. And you might be okay with that. People might be okay with that. I don't think the Lions are okay with that. I don't think at the end of the day they're ready to cut bait entirely, because he's shown like believe it or not, it hasn't necessarily shown in the preseason games, but from this time last year, Hendon Hooker looks like a marginally improved player, and that might just be a knock against where he started at. I don't know, but it just hasn't shown up in the preseason games, and I don't think he really has any excuses for that. There's no way to kind of explain that away. He needs to be better. But at the end of the day, like, I just think the Lions are going to be unwilling to pull the plug on the experiment entirely, because they're going to want 3 quarterbacks going into the season anyways. And it doesn't really make sense to just go out and get somebody completely new. So I'm pretty sure they're going to keep Hendon, but Dan Campbell said he's going to play most of the game on Saturday. So I'm looking forward to that, seeing if he can kind of start putting things together just even a little bit. Wide receiver, obviously a big one. Jackson Meeks, Dominic Lovett. Those are 2 guys who are kind of on the bubble for me, who have had relatively decent preseasons. I mean, Jackson Meeks been the star of the show the last 2 weeks. I think he has 90-something yards last week, 7 catches. Week before that, he has 70-something and a touchdown. So that's going to be interesting, because they might not keep more than 5 receivers. I think they will. I think they'll probably keep 6. That's what I keep kind of projecting him as. But, assuming that there's only room for one guy, it's kind of it's going to come down to who flashes more in this game, because they've shown a lot of similar things to this point, different types of players, but maybe a similar type of value added if you keep them on this roster. Just going through the positions here, D-line, there's a couple of guys who are kind of floating on the bubble there, and the edge. Nate Land and Isaac Ukwu on the edge. I think they have massive opportunities ahead of them with the injuries to Pascal and Hassanin, so that's going to be interesting to watch. Defensive tackle, they got a UDFA from Houston, Keith Cooper. and a UDFA who's been with the team for a couple of years, Chris Smith, and as well as returning veteran Pat O'Connor, who are all going to be kind of fighting for maybe one or two spots, and there could be some roster gymnastics there, perhaps with, Pat O'Connor being a veteran. Like I'm trying to figure out who's going to be like the surprise veteran cut that ends up doing the Kyle Pecco thing, where it's like, oh, this guy didn't even play in preseason games, and then he got cut, and then they just sign him right back because he's a veteran. You can maneuver things that way. So looking out for that there. And then in the defensive backfield, like there's DJ Reed, Terran Arnold, Kirby Joseph, Brian Branch, Amik Robertson, and then I think behind them you got Avonte Maddox, Rocky Steen, and I think it's pretty wide open from there. I think Eric Hallett probably has an inside track in making this roster. Khalil Dorsey is another cornerback who's going to make the roster. But Nick Whiteside, he's a local guy. He went to Auburn Hills Avondale, played at Saginaw Valley State. He's been impressing in camp, but might still find himself on the outside looking in just because of where he started. So those are all the guys that I'm kind of watching going into this week, who I think have a chance to make the roster, but are firmly on the bubble, and I'm probably leaning out on most of them.
I'm hoping. I went to Saginaw Valley at the same time as Nick, and I was on with the basketball squad, so I'm pushing for that one. I'm like, hey, I hope he has a good game of interception on Saturday or something to put him over the edge.
Yeah, he's had a great camp, and he had a couple pretty good preseason games as well. I've used this analogy a couple times now, but like it just reminded me of going into last game. He's like an FCS school that's like tied on the road at a Big Ten team, and it's like he's done everything right so far, but he needs to like keep doing everything absolutely perfectly, or otherwise things can spiral in a hurry. And I think for the most part he's done that. He didn't have the best game against Miami last week, but also wasn't too bad either. So interested to see how he finishes, because I think a lot of times they're evaluating the entire body of work, 17 practices, 4 games at this point when it's all said and done. But I mean, if you're kind of on the bubble the entire way and then you make a statement in that last game, I think that can actually matter a whole lot.
That would be big. We'd love to see that local kid to make the squad. Nolan, I appreciate you hopping on. I know I didn't know how long maybe you were able to stay, but 30 minutes, man, it was a good time. We need to get you back like next week or before the season starts. I have a million more questions for you. So
perfect.
Let's get you back on. Appreciate it.
Anytime. All right. Thank you.
See ya. All right, Nolan Bianchi, that absolute legend for hopping on and talking ball. I mean, Nolan is dialed in. I think he's one of the best in the game when it comes to Lions coverage. Make sure you guys go follow him on Twitter and on Detroit News. He puts his articles out there that he does some great ones as well. They put out some great articles there. I usually go there on Lions NSI. And Pride of Detroit. Those are like kind of my 3 that I'm always going to and just kind of get my information from. And I'm live with Corey too. Corey puts some great ones out too. Honestly, I read everything. So there it is. But shout out to Nolan for joining the show. We're going to have Dose of Dion here at 9:15 in a minute. Listen, I think there was a lot of things that Nolan talked about that I feel like now we're in the final week of camp that everyone's starting to get pretty lockstep on what's going to happen with this roster and what's going on with this Lions team. I feel like there was moments of camp where it was like, hey, there's all these different people going different ways, all these different takes, these thought processes. And I feel like now all of a sudden everything is like lining up and everyone's getting the same feeling, like Nolan said with Jared Goff and this offense, like it's starting to come together and you're starting to get a good feel about it. And John Morton and the play calling, like I said today, we had some people come up to us today, me and Easy, and actually talk about the Lions offense and the play calling. We're like, hey, this play calling actually looks good. These guys are actually out there, like, it's coming together a little bit. And then defensively, obviously, I wasn't able to watch the defense as much today, but he said that it was 55-45 towards the Texans a little bit. But every time we looked over there, even if that was the case, when we would look over there, we saw Hutch getting after it, the D-line getting after it, 4 interceptions over there. So, like, they're battling it out with the good football team in training camp. And essentially, like, when you get into the regular season, even if your defense is losing 55-45, if you have the offense that the Lions have, then you're going to win every game. Like it's going to be tough to beat a team like that has this offense. And if the defense is kind of putting up a battle like that every single night. So I'm positive vibes there from that. And then Nolan as well at the end, kind of with some of those guys getting cut. I'm interested in that wide receiver battle as well. Like that Dominic Lovett, Jackson Meeks thing. I'll tell you what, at camp today, those two are just like side by side. And Jay Hart, I see Jay Hart in there, put it in there. If you were watching camp and you were there today, you literally saw Dominic Lovett and Jackson Meeks just next to each other the whole time, helping each other out. And that was one thing Easy brought up to me, was like, he loves the fact that some of these guys, they're battling for positions on this team, and they're out there like, I'm going to take your job, but they're also helping each other out. Like, boom, boom, like, hey, this is what you need to do. And you don't see that a lot in football, and especially, typically bad organizations, you don't see that type of stuff. Jay Hart said he brought up an interesting point with Dominic Lovett. He balled it today, and that's what I was telling folks outside of that injury in the Hall of Fame game. Lovett is solid too. Listen, I talked to the doc about this. I had a little bit of theory where the game one, the Hall of Fame game, Dominic Lovett, he had 2 drops, but he did have a decent game outside of those 2 drops, and then he gets injured. And in game one in the Hall of Fame game, we didn't see much of Jackson Meeks. I think he had 1 catch for 5 yards. And then when Dominic Lovett goes down with injury, and this is how this is the business. This is football. This is how it works in the NFL. It's a National Football League. And Kirk Cousins, if you guys watch the quarterback show, Kirk Cousins actually said it firsthand. Kirk was like, I've always been told in this league, you do not give up your starting job. If you have one, not for one day, not a practice, not a preseason game, nothing. You don't give your starting job up, because you can lose it in an instance. And when Dominic Lovett went down that week in the second game, where Dominic Lovett didn't play, Jackson Meeks looked good and he balled out a little bit. And then when that happens, they're like, okay, we're rolling with Jackson Meeks. And then in the third preseason game, you saw a little bit of Lovett, but it was Jackson Meeks again. And that's kind of where I think things started to turn a little bit, was that injury. And, when I spoke with Easy today, he was like, hey, he didn't have a good first game because of those drops. So when you have that and then you get injured, and then it follows up where there's another player at your position that you're a 7th round pick. Yes, I get it. You're a draft pick, but you're not far off of a UDFA, right? If there's a UDFA that's better than you, that's possible. You almost went undrafted as well. So I think there is definitely a world where that injury kind of killed him a little bit. So let me see. What else do we have here? Let's see. I see there's a bunch of like going back and forth in the chat. I don't know what that is. I don't know what's happening here. Streams only, AG's burner, just absolutely just going back and forth. But yeah, Jay Hart's right. Dominic Lovett looked good today. Jackson Meeks looks good. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. I think Nolan's spot on with it, to where it's going to be a battle on Saturday, and whoever plays better wins that spot. I don't see a world they keep 7 wide receivers, though. A lot of people are doing it. I would be shocked to see 7 wide receivers kept on this football team. I really would. That's a lot of guys to keep. All right, next 7 minutes here. I want to do this. Aiden Hutchinson spoke with the media. He talked about a couple different things. He talked about kind of his growth in this defense this year, how his legs feeling. He had the contract conversation. I want to talk about that. And obviously, I had the conversation with Nolan and gave my take, so we really won't do that. But then he also talked about this defense as well. So I do want to play a couple clips from that and just kind of get a feel here with Hutch. Because, listen, I don't think people, unless you've been at camp and actually have like seen Aiden Hutchinson like face to face, and well, not face to face, but like in person, and seen him on the field playing, I don't know how to explain it. Like he's different. And like I told Nolan, when Aiden Hutchinson got hurt last year, and listen, I have so much respect. Last year going into last season, I said, hey, TJ Watt's the best football player in the NFL. I didn't say defensive, nothing. Best football player. Myles Garrett, one of the best defensive players in the NFL. It's TJ Watt, Myles Garrett. When Aiden Hutchinson got hurt last season, he was the best defensive player in the NFL. He was better than Myles Garrett at the time. He was better than TJ Watt. He was better than Micah Parsons. He was the best. He was better than Patrick Surtain. He was the best defensive player when he went down. Now, 8 months early, let's fast forward 8 months. Aiden Hutchinson, every report, every time I've been to camp, Aiden Hutchinson looks like a better player. He looks better than when he went down. So that's why I come out and say, hey, I think Aiden Hutchinson's the best defensive player in the NFL right now. Whether you agree or disagree, I really don't care at the end of the day. But that's just kind of my thought process with it. And he was asked today, essentially, how his leg feels. One, he was asked about the growth and in this defense. And then 2, asked about the leg. And I think for a lot of people, everyone still has that like in the back of their head. Is this injury going to affect him at all? Or affect him, infect him, no infection. Come on now, affect him at all, right? And Stream's only slappy take. It's not a slappy take. This is just a fact. Stream's only. I'm sure I don't know if you've been at camp or if you've seen Aiden Hutchinson in person this offseason. And unless you have, I don't think you're allowed to say. There's no slappy take. He looks like the best defensive player on the planet right now at the current moment. And I don't think there's anything else to it, honestly. And then there's people, well, his leg's still injured. It says, if you still have that take where it's like, hey, I need to see him through the injury, I think you're dead wrong. That means you just haven't been paying attention. And Hutch actually said it here. And let me share my screen here so people can see. I want to pull this video up. But Hutch actually said it today where he was asked, like, hey, have you had a moment with your leg that made you feel like this isn't going to work? And he brought up the point. He said, I literally, the exact same thing that happened with Aleem McNeil, where my leg essentially snapped and hit Aleem. He said he had that same thing happen at camp recently. So let me play this for you. There's about 2 questions here. I'll play it for you. And then once we get back from this video, Dose of Dion is going to be joining here at 9:15. So I'm pumped. Hey, I'm pumped up to have our guy on the show. So here's Aiden Hutchinson on being in this defense and his leg.
I did that. You know, I went through a little bit of adversity like everybody does in camp. When you grow from it, you learn from it. And I got better as a player. And that's ultimately my goal every single camp, and to have me ready for week 1 and for the whole rest of the season.
Did you need this? Did you need that? Did you need that lot?
You're talking about like physically?
Yeah, just physically, even mentally. I mean, last year.
Yeah, I mean, there was one play I think it was a goal line play probably 3 weeks ago, and I got leg whipped by our fellow linebacker who went in. It was right smack dab where Aleem hit me a few months ago. And I got up, shook it out, and you're like, we're back, So I feel like stuff like that, it really grows the mental and the physical. When you can get leg whipped, you start to have that confidence of like, I got a steel rod in my leg and this thing's not going anywhere,
Last time we talked to you, you said you feel better than you did. You'd be ashamed if you didn't. Calvin Shepard said the same thing. Do you feel right now on the field finally getting to go against another team as you were feeling last year, and like you said, maybe even better on the field against competition right now?
For sure. I mean, yeah, definitely every game has its different challenges. Every person you go against has its different challenges. But I mean, ultimately, as a player, I think I've grown, and I'm going to continue to grow every year.
Which young guy have you been impressed by?
I'm muted. I'm back. All right, there we go. I gotta make sure I'm all good. You guys heard it there from Hutch, and that's exactly what I'm talking about with him. Is I just don't think there's people like, if you haven't seen him in person yet and you haven't heard him talk about this, I think there's obviously still those people that are talking about, there's injury. You got to knock all of that off. Right here. Stream's only note. Booner, many Texans and Dolphins beat writers said there are starting tackles that handled him. Slappy take. I've seen reports that versus the Dolphins, the guy had 6 sacks in joint practice. And today, I'm watching the offense, and the 2 times me and Easy look up to the defense, Aiden Hutchinson's just getting a sack. Just, I don't know. It's just, if you don't think that this guy's going to be back better than ever, you just aren't paying attention. Like, yeah, I mean, you just hate the team. You hate Aiden Hutchinson at this point. That's all it is. All right, let's just stop talking to Aiden Hutchinson because I'm gonna get riled up. I can't get myself so riled up. All right, hey, great guest coming up. Good friend of the program. One of my favorite people. I actually got to go to camp with him today, and we sat and watched Lions camp all day. Hung out with the guy. Dose of Dion, absolute legend. Let me see if I can get a dose of Dion. Welcome to the show.
Man, hey, wait, hold up. Because on this show, for whatever reason, I always sound horrendous. Do I sound all right?
Hey, you sound great. I'm pumped up to have you on the show, man. This is exciting.
Dude, I'm fired up to be here, man. Thank you for having me, man. Everything looks so good. The date is seeing the date in the corner. I'm like, oh, okay.
By the way, the date's wrong too on there.
Okay, so maybe it's not big time. I shouldn't have pointed that out. I apologize. No, I'm happy.
Oh, wait a second. Hold on. Look at this. Bang. Date's right. We're good. That's on me. The last 2. I've been solo all week, Dion, and I just didn't know that those were in there.
It's okay.
Hey, you're a legend for bringing that up. Hey, you look clear. You sound great. I appreciate you joining the show. It was fun to actually go to camp with you today. And it was a great camp to go to with the Texans. What were your takeaways, Dion? What was the biggest thing? At least let's start with this. Let's start offensively. Biggest offensive takeaways today that you saw.
So for me, I think for both sides, even it was really just trying to get in because it's I haven't been in that many days, so I was trying to get an idea of like I would assume we're not going to see everything, but we're going to get a better sense of what John Morton's talking about and what Kelvin Shepard's defense is going to look like, just schematically, like stylistically. What kind of wrinkles is he throwing at these guys? And I'll say offensively, like we've heard all these like, oh, we're pushing the ball down the field, we're going to be more aggressive. And, we can expect that, and I do expect that, but it's the ways that he implemented it. Like, for example, Caleb Raymond was way more involved than I thought. Like, you don't know anything about this. We're like, people are talking about, is this guy going to get cut? And then I see him today, I'm like, oh, no, he's not getting cut. Like, it's not even on the table.
He looked good today.
He looked so good, and he was involved in everything. I mean, red zone. He's involved in everything. The big plays underneath. He was constantly involved. I would say offensively, it was the trust that Goff seemingly felt with the offense in terms of aggressiveness felt like a midseason kind of form. That didn't mean everything was perfect, but watch him nearly throw. He nearly threw a couple of interceptions. Saint breaks one up. The other one, he throws right at the safety in the end zone because he's trying to look somebody off. But it was the aggression that he was playing with, which I loved. I'm like, okay, he's not afraid to throw this thing. And I love that. And so for me, it was offensively, it was Caleb Raymond being so involved, and it was the craftiness of a couple of their setups. Like, we were watching them, 6 offensive linemen. And so, okay, we've seen jumbo before.
Yeah.
But we're seeing it. Here goes Penny Sewell shifting across. Like, oh, snap, we're running the ball that way. Like, this is pretty fun. Or the example for me, which one stood out, was they had Tim Patrick motion behind the line of scrimmage, run through the line of scrimmage, and then break. Now, he dropped the pass. But it's the way that they set up to get him wide open was like, okay, I can see the craftiness of what he's putting together here. So, for me, it was all of that.
Yeah, I think like that. I forgot completely about the play where Panay kind of shifts to the left side. They had Dan Skipper out there. They had 2 tight ends. They had Brock Wright and Sam Laporta, and then they just ran it right in for a touchdown. It was like it was with ease. Offensively, I want to actually ask you because I haven't had this conversation with you with the offensive line. What are your thoughts on this new offensive line that they have going, especially like Tate at right, Graham? I know Graham went down today, but then like Christian Mahogany, the dirtbag at left guard. Do you like this new offensive line?
Dude, I'm with it. I'm with it. I think right now it's the right step because coming in, we all hoped we had Frank, and then as soon as we found out we didn't, it was like, okay, well, shoot, maybe we do speed up that process because ultimately I think long-term Tate is better at center.
Yeah.
Well, them kind of pushing him to that, I was excited. I was like, oh, okay, shoot, let's do it right now. Why wait? But ultimately it's like, okay, but he is young. So reality is it probably is better just to be patient and like in time we'll do that. But let's let him actually play NFL football a little bit. And to your point, hopefully Graham's all right. Because you know what? I don't know. So I'm sure you talked about the Graham thing, but did you notice Brad Holmes down there? And I don't know if this was coincidence or not, but when Brad Holmes is walking past at the same time that Graham is on the ground, I got a bad feeling in my stomach. It may have just been weird timing, but to me, I was like, oh no.
I turned over to you guys. I said the only thing I don't like a leg injury. Okay, there could be calf, hamstring, and the one thing I hate to see is if they're looking at a knee, and if they're doing tests out a knee, that's where and like Easy was like, well, he walked off, so it's minor. You could walk off and walk into the locker room all you want. Dion, like with the knee, it could be a surgery and a small thing, and a surgery you're out a month. To me, that's major for Graham. A month, like that's your starting center.
Dude, it'd be horrible at this time too. So here's how I'm looking at it though. Here's the positive, negative side. Number one, the fact that he did walk off. To your point, I don't think it tells you really anything. I walked off and had a very significant injury. Our recent quarterback at where I'm at walked off and he has a very significant injury. Yep. But the positive I'll say is I'm looking at is these dudes are high level, these trainers. And my assumption is they probably went out there and gave him the test that they could very quickly of like how significant of this. Like, for example, like let's have the movements of, can we tell if something clearly, oh, there's a big problem here? Yes or no? Because if they can tell that, even if he can walk, that dude's not walking. It's like, yeah, let's get him out of here. Like, we're not going to let him walk across. So my hope is that they got the early indicators we're okay here. And then they'll get they'll go a little bit deeper on that a little bit later. But so that's my thought on that. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
My heart dropped when that happened. I saw Easy. It was funny. We were sitting there. I looked to my left and Easy fell to his knees. And I was like, what is he doing over there? And then I look up at Graham Glasgow. I was down on the ground holding his leg. And I'm like, Easy was legit like on his knees. And I was like, all right, this can't be good.
Dude, I hope not, man. I'm hoping.
Is there anything else offensively that kind of honestly, another thing too that I just popped in my head, the wide receiver room. What do you think happens with that wide receiver room with Tim Patrick, Tesla? I actually have been hearing this week, and some of the beat writers that we've spoken with throughout the week, when they talk about surprise cuts, the name that keeps coming up, it's Tim Patrick. And he was running with the twos today. He actually I can't remember if it was him. I think he had a drop in the middle of the field actually today, but his name just keeps coming up in these cuts. And it's a vet where I think it's like, hey, you can use him, but that Tesla pressure's getting put on. And then they're like, we don't know if we want to let go of Dominic Lovett and Jackson Meeks. Does that leave Tim Patrick where it's like, yeah, we do like him, but he's kind of the odd guy out at that point? Do you think that's even a case, or what are your thoughts on this wide receiver room?
No, you're right. He did have the one drop today, and it came out like great. Like he's working with the second team initially, from what we saw, and it was like, oh, he made a great grab, and then he dropped it. But it wasn't like it seemed that it wasn't like a drop of like, oh man, it was like, dude, you shouldn't drop that. Like that's an easy drop. But he still made plays. For me, my thought is of what I think will happen at receiver room. I could be way off, so this is very likely way off. My thought is they're going to, as of now, keep Jackson Meeks. That's my thought as of now. And my slight lean is they're going to cut Dominic Lovett. That said, though, if it was me, I would not cut Dominic Lovett. And it's not because like he's been better than Jackson Meeks or he's earned it over that guy. It's more so what he's looked like now, I believe, is the same guy I've seen at Georgia. And that's not a good thing in the sense of like, oh, man, okay, that means he's growing. Like, no, that's not great. We want to see some of these drop issues kind of start to pull back a little bit in terms of things that are away from his frame. But that said, I think the real positives are also showing up. Like he's a separator, man. And I just think in 4 years' time, I mean, it's not gonna be 4 years, but give him a full season to kind of work in here. Because I don't think you cut either of those guys, they're both gone.
Yeah.
Specifically, I'm pretty darn sure Dominic Lovett's gonna be gone. I would like to see just give him some time throughout the year, even if we don't see him during the season. If either of those guys make the team, they're not going to play during the season, hopefully that much at all on offense. So it's just about not losing them. And right now, we lost Isaiah Williams. We cut Isaiah Williams last year, and he was gone immediately. So for me, from that perspective, it's like I would really prefer not to cut either. But if I have to make that tough decision, I'd keep Dominic Lovett because I do think in time he has a really high upside. And plus, in the meantime, you can still get real value from him on special teams. I mean, hey, speaking of that, he probably had the best kick return today. I mean, Grant fumbled a kick return immediately, which I don't want to make anything of that, but it's like, oh, goodness. Okay, well, that was the first impression. Then he did it again today. And you got Lovett out there who probably had the best one. He took it like midfield. So for me, I would keep him. And my thought is right now they're going to try to find a way to keep 6 just because it's like, we'll cut at tight end. Like if you have to make the decision between, I want to keep Zach Corton too. But what's more likely? We cut Zach Corton and Shane, and we get one of those two, if not both of them, back. Or you cut Dominic and you cut Jackson. You're getting one of those two back? Probably not. So that's how I would play. Playing the numbers game, I'd be on the side of cautious with cutting any of those receivers. That's where I'm at. But for Tim Patrick, I wouldn't let him go. Tim Patrick, to me, you got to keep.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at.
That was this week when I started hearing the Tim Patrick stuff, I was actually shocked. And then I asked more people about surprise cuts, and that was the name. And actually, Craig came up. We had John McRoon on. He came on and I said, hey, who are some surprise cuts? And he named those two guys, and I was taken aback. I was like, wow, I didn't even. And actually, I don't think anyone reported this. And Robert actually just put it in the chat, and I was going to say it. I had put a tweet out today, Dion, during practice, where when the twos went out on the field, the first running back that was on the field running with the twos was Sione Vaki and not Craig Reynolds. So they obviously had Sione Vaki today in that kind of running back 3 spot. And I think that was going to shock a lot of people going into this weekend where people were going to be like, whoa. And then as soon as that happened, there was about 4 plays into that drive. Sione Vaki got hurt, got taken off the field, took his helmet off. They took his helmet, and he was with trainers, I think getting maybe his left leg, something. I don't know if it was a hamstring or what it was, but they were working on him. And then all of a sudden, Sione Vaki just doesn't practice the rest of the day, and it was Craig. So I was shocked about that. What about defensively, Dion? What are your thoughts on this defense right now? I know today they had a lot of turnovers. I had Nolan on here just before, and he said that at the Detroit News, they had about 50-50 split. And it was kind of like no team really won defensively, that it was just pretty evenly matched. What were your takeaways so far? And then honestly, just for preseason so far with this defense?
I don't know much. I don't know about you, man, but seeing DJ Reed was awesome because the only days I've been there, DJ Reed wasn't even practicing. So I was like, okay, I'm just excited to see this. he to me was a standout, though. It wasn't just that he was playing and it was like, oh, the first time I'm getting to see him as really a Lion. It was the fact that when I was going through my notes, I probably had at least 5 pass breakups today. Like, legit, that dude was all over football. Not to say he was perfect. He got beat a couple of times, but that's one of those players that was awesome. And it showed up. I mean, we were going to be tested with Nico, and he gave us some problems and some fits seemingly later on. But I just thought throughout the entirety of the day, man, DJ Reed was everything I was hoping that it would be from first impressions. And then Terrion kind of had his little back and forth here and there. But he was the guy, and Alex Anzalone, because it was the whole weird situation with Alex, and now it's looking like, okay, I don't know how it's going to work out here. There's a payment. I don't think they're going to give him a deal like anytime soon in terms of extension, but he looked awesome. I thought Alex Anzalone was the other standout player, and to see that he was able to kind of like get back, and it's like, oh, it seems like there's no step missed here. This guy's going to be a huge part of this team, and he looks like the guy we all hope is still that guy. That's the other very big positive. Outside of that, though, my belief coming in, and we're banged up at corner to the point where, I mean, we don't even know who's playing corner. We're watching it like, who in the world is that guy that just took that football? I don't know. But to me, I think the secondary is going to be the strength of this defense this year. I think it could be the best secondary in football. And that may sound crazy, but I think it could be that good this year. When you think what DJ did and Terrion's potential growth and Amik, I think that's the loaded room for the Lions. And the big takeaway for me is the communication. Linebacker seemingly has some breakdowns, but the communications between safeties and corners is the big takeaway, because in the red zone, they seem to be passing things off. I'm watching them jump on crossers. I was watching them the first day I was there at training camp. I was watching them do drills that I just don't remember them doing, like, hey, we're going to have 2 guys cross each other and you guys got to pass it off. I'm like, oh, that makes a ton of sense. I mean, in today's NFL, that's what everybody does, and everybody's playing man inside the 10. So why wouldn't you rep this? That's the kind of thing that gets me fired up. That's the kind of thing that gets me hype. I think the secondary is going to be a problem. That's where I'm at. I think it's going to be a problem this year.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest takeaway is that secondary. Like TA, what are your expectations for TA this year with Terrion Arnold? Do you think that, because I put out there that I think if TA does take the jump that he can, because I've always thought last year the issues were never talent and size, or like I think he has all of that. I always just thought it was more so grasping the NFL like speed and the play and just kind of those like small pieces in the NFL that's just a little bit different from college, and that's why all those penalties came. Where I had thought going into this year, like, hey, if he figures that out, which it feels like he has, I feel like TA could be a Pro Bowl corner in the league. Like, and I don't think that's an exaggeration. We saw one of the first plays of the day today on Nico Collins. He goes up and basically gets a pass breakup in the end zone. Do you think TA can have that year to be a Pro Bowler?
All right, so if you don't want crazy talk, this was not the guy to ask about. To be honest with
Here we go.
Like, I mean, to me, it is. People can think it's crazy. That's fine. I got to go back to what I thought and be true to myself. When he was coming out of the draft, I thought he was the best corner before we took him. I didn't think there was any world we'd get him, and then we did get him. I thought he was better than Mitchell coming out. So the fact that we landed him, I already have a crazy bias, like, oh, this guy's going to be amazing. So that's just there. It is what it is. But that said, I do think it does start with Terrion. Like, that idea of the secondary being as good as I think it's possibly could be, it all is what does Terrion look like this year. Now, the thing that you said about Terrion to me is I thought Terrion got better, and then he would get worse, and then get a little bit better. I thought last year was all of this. It felt like a true rookie season. It was like we're throwing him into the fire. He's going to have good. He's going to have bad. Early on, it was the flags. Then he started to pull back. Then he played Minnesota the first time. I was like, this guy looks awesome. And then he had some other bumps, and then you'd have communication breakdowns, and it was like, okay, he's not communicating with somebody. Somebody's uncovered. And you get little issues like that. Like, you would just have things that would pop up, and then other things would get better. Then other things would pop up as issues. It felt like a rookie year. And all the talk that he gave us the offseason is like, man, I'm watching film every day. I mean, come on, you can't say that and expect me not to be like, this guy's going to be amazing. He's going to be amazing. That's my true. He's going to be amazing. DJ Reed is the perfect opposite fit because Reed's knocks are, well, he's a little bit on the smaller side. You can kind of push him off the top of the route. That's not Terrion's issue. Terrion, as you said, that first pass breakup on Nico, that dude is a freaky athlete, man. That dude can sky. He's going to take football. He didn't take the ball away last year. Like, he had 5 in his last year at Bama. He's going to get those. They're going to come. He's on the field too much. So for me, I believe Terrion's going to be fantastic this season, and he's very quickly going to be on his route to one of the best corners in football and being the number 1 corner on this defense. That's my take. It's crazy, but there you go.
Hey, over under. Mm-hmm. 2. I'm gonna do over under. How many? What's your prediction
for what?
Terrion interceptions.
Okay, I'll give him 4.
4. Okay. Yeah. That was something last year on our show. We would do the watch parties, and we kept every week, besides me, everyone on the show just kept going, this is the week for Terrion. This is Terrion. And I got to a point where I was like, all right, guys, we got you. Like, I think you're either jinxing them or something's happened, but you guys got to stop. So hopefully this year I would love to see 4. That would put them in like that category where you're like, hey, this is a great corner in the NFL.
Especially with the way that we play. Like, that's one thing to say with defenses that are like, we play some of the highest zone in coverage. Like, if that's your style, like, okay, you should get, because you're going to also have the downside if you're going to give up some plays. But for a way that we play, that's a lot of picks, man, because you don't have your eyes back there. But yeah, you're right. You probably did jinx it. So I'm going to blame you guys going forward on this. Like, when that one ball, I remember a throw being like thrown directly at him in the chest, and he didn't come up with it. It's like, what just happened right there?
I don't know what was going on with him. He just could not come down with one. Last thing I just want to ask you here, Dion, defensively, what do you see this defense being this year? Do you think that this defense, after seeing preseason, that they can be let's say like a top 5 defense with the pieces that they have?
So I want to go to your Hutchinson thing, because you were going to get fired up before I jumped on.
I
appreciated that energy. I was with it. I was like, let's go crazy. I'm with it. I thought my takeaway from trying to look at was that the offense was getting the ball really fast. So he definitely had some wins there. I didn't feel Hutchinson was like dominant necessarily, but he did have a couple of wins, and you probably just looked up at those times.
That was it. I looked up twice. He had 2 sacks.
That's what it is, man. They're all the way over there. I don't even know who's making some of these plays. I'm just writing down numbers and I'm trying to pick. I mean, guys got their shirts pulled up. I don't know who's doing what. I don't even know who's going against, if I'm being honest. But I will say, I thought that their offense, Houston, had to play so fast. They had to get the ball out so fast. I thought that was the aspect that showed. It's like they seem to have a plan of like, look, if we're going to run offense, we can't have, because this isn't like, remember they had the Hutch rule in our practice? You can't do that as the other team. You can't like, hey, we got sacked, but we're still running the play. Like, now they're going to call that dead, dude. They're having a joint practice. So I thought they were getting the ball fast. My bold prediction this year is we are known for defense, not offense this year. That's my bold take.
Love that. I actually, I don't disagree with that. I think that's going to be and I think that's what they need to win the Super Bowl. I really do.
Yeah. You got to, I mean, and look, it's easy to forget we were the top 3rd down defense in football last year. I think it was either top 3rd or top red zone defense. We were top 7. I think it was in red zone defense. And then on top of that, we were number 1 in pass rating allowed last year in football. So it's like, with all the things we were doing, I mean, we were still really darn good. Yeah. And I think if that secondary is what we hope it is, linebacker depth feels like it's actually in a great spot, because Cunningham feels like he could start. It's just that now he doesn't have to, because Alex is back. We're going to be known for defense this year.
I love that, Dion. Dion, we got to get you back on the show here in the next couple of weeks before the season gets going, to get you some more of those takes out. I appreciate you joining. I appreciate coming with the boys to camp today. That was a great time. I had a blast.
The invite, man, dude. I was fired up. It was like when Easy was like, "Yo, we got a ticket for him." I'm like, come on, man, let's do this. I'm fired up. I just want to see one more day, and this was the perfect day. So
it was a good time.
I appreciate
for sure. Always when Easy put me in that group chat, I was like, "Let's go, Dion's coming." I appreciate it, Dion. Hey, appreciate you hopping on.
Thank you for having me. By the way, let's not speak on the group. The group chat went sideways very quickly. We should have known that with having Easy in there, but this is what we have to deal with.
That's what Easy is, man. He'll turn things upside down real quick.
All right, man. I'll see you, man. Have a great rest of your show, man. Appreciate that as well.
Appreciate it, Dion. See ya. All right. Dose of Dion, absolute legend. And we're going back-to-back guests here. I'm solo today, and I'm pumped up. As a Michigan man, after yesterday, I had John Macaroon on the show, and I think I told the doc today, I saw him at Allen Park at Lions camp. I said, I think you attacked me a little bit, and then I had to go at the doc a little bit yesterday on the show about the Michigan stuff and everything that came out about that. So I wanted to have one of my favorite people who cover the Michigan Wolverines. Honestly, we've had him on the show before. Covers it for the Wolverine on 3. Anthony Broom. Anthony, how are we doing, man?
I'm great. Hey, having done solo shows before, it's not easy to do, but kudos to you keeping the ball rolling here and doing a great job. I was tuned in a little bit beforehand.
I appreciate it. It is. I told I had Nolan on earlier. I told him, I said, it's kind of solo shows. I don't think people until they do it know exactly how difficult it is going through. I've done it all week. This is my 4th show this week doing it just solo. So it's been a fun time.
You know, you're unchecked getting those takes off though. So
yes,
it's just a week-long heat check.
Someone texted me and said this is the perfect time for you to get every single take off that you've ever wanted to for the season. Exactly. I'm ready to go. I appreciate you joining. I know there's a lot of Michigan, and you've probably been pretty busy this offseason. I want to start off, obviously, before we get into the season, with obviously the news over the last couple of weeks. And I just want to get your thoughts on it, because I haven't had a conversation with you in regards to it. What are your thoughts on everything that kind of, as people say, like the hammer that was getting brought down on Michigan with the fine, and then obviously the show clauses that got handed out? What are your thoughts on how all of that went down with the NCAA?
Yeah, I'm sure if you go back to shows that I did on our site, a couple national shows when this stuff all kind of went down. It pretty much wound up being what I thought it would be in terms of, a lengthy bit of probation. I think it's 4 years in the NCAA ruling, a big fine, show causes and then suspensions for people who were involved. And, outside of a few little details here and there, that's pretty much what it wound up being. Now, I side with Michigan on the appeal because I think the fines that they're paying are a bit excessive. They say, oh, we didn't want to do a postseason ban, but we wanted to do, a financial equivalent to that. Oh, we didn't want to take scholarships away, but we wanted to do the financial equivalent of that. And that's, I think that stuff is going to wind up getting knocked down. I've always said that I don't think there's any question. Like the fact that other teams do what Connor Stallions was caught doing, that's not to me, that's an elementary school defense. Oh, well, he did it too. So like you got your hand caught in the cookie jar. You're going to pay the penalties for it. I think in this case, the penalties were appropriate. I don't think when stealing signs is legal. That's been one of the biggest misconceptions about all of it. But, there's that gray area there that Stallions and Michigan didn't just walk up to. They kind of jumped into it and, think of the Dave Chappelle kicking the couch. Like they skirted up against it in a big way. But at the end of the day, when it comes to how much of a schematic advantage was it, how much of a competitive advantage was it, I think that's impossible to quantify. And I think that's why you kind of saw the NCAA go after them for lack of compliance. Some of the other, during the investigation, they found some recruiting violations in there. So because they didn't have a smoking gun as it pertained to, did these actions affect games, you kind of saw them pile on a little bit. And you could say deservedly so. It's an ink blot test. The people who hate Michigan are going to say it was too light. People who love Michigan are going to say it's totally not fair. Truth probably somewhere in the middle. And I think it'll all play itself out in the appeals process. I think those fines are going to get knocked down a decent amount, but there'll still be a price to pay. And I think they're prepared to do that if they feel that they're treated fairly, which has been the crux of this entire thing.
Yeah, I feel like it's been such a long process. I feel like everyone outside of maybe a handful of people just wanted, hey, this just needs to get done with and let's finish it. And then obviously, hopefully this appeal process, I don't know how long that will take, but hopefully it's not something that, do you know how, like a timetable on that? Is it going to be another year or so that this thing's going to go into?
So the typical timeline, and this is on the NCAA's website, is about 8 months. Now,
okay,
for as long as this has felt like it's gone, this is actually somewhat expedited by NCAA standards. So maybe that gets done a little sooner. I know you have, I think, 15 days from the day the punishment was sent down to state your intention to appeal. Michigan did that 4 hours later. I assume they'll have something in writing sent to the NCAA before that, which there's a 30-day window for that. So maybe it gets moved up a little bit, but we'll see what the appeals does, because it's probably going to be another 6 to 8, maybe 9 months. And if Michigan still feels like they're not being treated fairly, they seem willing to at least consider the idea of taking it to court. So
yeah,
we're still anywhere from months to Lord knows how long from finality. But I think that a lot of people have closure now and feel at least a sense of relief that, hey, everything that those players accomplished and the coaches accomplished in that time frame, all that stays intact. And I think that down the stretch of that season, the 2023 season, those players showed that it was about the players and it was about how you decided on the field. So I think there's, when it all came down, there was the social media victory lap. I wouldn't quite go that far, as a Michigan guy. I just think it's a deep breath and a sense of relief that at least I don't think it's going to get worse than what we know already.
Yeah, most definitely. I'm glad it's kind of at that point to where it's just, all right, there's the appeal process, let that go on. And then at least now we know what the penalty is and whether it goes down or not, it's kind of over. I do want to get into the football stuff here for this season, because I'm pumped up for this season. I'm excited to kind of hear what your thoughts are fully, because you do cover the team. Like, and you've been out at practices and stuff, I'm guessing. at some point?
I
spring
wish
training?
so. Yeah, so a little inside baseball. Michigan doesn't open practice to us. And
Really?
so we only, when we're in the building, it's for press conferences and talking to coaches and players. So we kind of rely on what they're saying mixed with what some of our people on the inside who have seen practice are seeing. So really, and I know Bryce Underwood questions are coming. I know other questions are coming. Really, the only public glimpse that we've had of him outside of the fact that, we in the state know him because he played at Belleville and, he's been winning state titles, competing for state titles since he was a freshman. Outside of his high school film and that look we had at him in the spring game, that's the only public sort of look we've had at this team so far. So it's a little bit different. It's not like that everywhere, but Michigan likes to go in their little submarine, as Jim Harbaugh used to say.
There's a side of me that kind of likes that, like just lock in and put their head down and they just work. I guess the one question I can ask with that, especially the new OC with Chip Lindsey, it sounds like that this offense is going to be a little different and kind of night and day difference from what we've kind of seen in the past. Do you get that same sense? And what are you expecting from this new offense with Chip Lindsey?
I think over time it's gonna look a little bit different. In the here and now, Chip Lindsey's a guy where, he's got about a decade's worth of track record of calling some really good, balanced, versatile offense too. Just look back at the last 2 years at North Carolina. 2 years ago, he's got Drake May. So you're slinging the ball around the field and you're generating these explosive plays in the passing game. And last year, they had some quarterback injuries, but they had Amari and Hampton. So you hammered that guy, and that's what you built your offense around. So I think they're going to build around the strengths of their personnel. Now, still Michigan, I think they're going to want to control the line of scrimmage, run the football. But, you bring in a guy like Bryce Underwood, and over time, you would expect that they're going to get a little more explosive. I think the things that we'll see different in the immediate are you're going to see some more shots down the field. That doesn't mean they're running the air raid or they're throwing 40, 50 times a game, but if they're going to see loaded boxes, they have a guy now in Underwood who, they say it's a battle. When Monday comes around, he will be named the starter, and that's when this thing officially kicks into high gear. But I think that they're going to run the football, and if they see the loaded boxes, they will attack whatever the defenses give them. And again, you saw the other day, they get a 5-star running back for 2026 and Savion Hyder. You make that sort of investment in a guy, you're still planning on being, if not a ground first team, that's going to be a big part of what they're going to do. So, but in the here and now, I think that it's bare bones isn't the way to maybe look at it. But, I think this team, the engine of this year's offense, as fun as it will be to watch Bryce Underwood develop, is going to be the two running backs they have in Justice Haynes and Jordan Marshall. So you'll see those guys a little more active in the pass game. You'll see probably a few more creative looks here and there, but I think it's going to look a little more like a throwback Michigan offense than what it might look like next year or the year after.
Yeah, I feel like the biggest thing with this, like last year, that offense, it felt like it was like, hey, if they had anything, I know they were almost dead last when it comes to offenses ranked in college football. It was like, hey, if they could bring anything this year, I feel like that it's a positive and just a little bit of a change. Do you think defensively, coming from last season to now, do you think that they're going to kind of still be able to be at that high level? Was there any recruits or any transfers that they brought in that are going to be making massive impacts?
Yeah, there's a couple transfers up front. Obviously, you lose Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant. There's not a one-to-one replacement. Just like a couple years ago, there wasn't a one-to-one replacement for when you lose a guy like Aiden Hutchinson, and David Ojabo was part of that too. The way that they attacked the edge position that year was that they were much deeper. They were 4 or 5 deep at the edge. And this year, I think there's a bit of a similarity there. They really emphasize depth in the middle of their defense. Rayshon Benny is a guy who was kind of the third wheel behind Graham and Grant. He's put a lot of good stuff on film. He's going to start there and have an expanded role, and I think be a really good player. They brought in Trey Williams from Clemson, a guy who had battled injuries and inconsistency throughout his career, but really finally put together a decent season last year and ended on a high note. He had 2 sacks against Texas in the college football playoffs. So they're excited about him. Damon Dean Jr., another Belleville guy. They brought in from Alabama, more of a depth piece. And There's a couple other guys there too. Trey Pierce, Eno Etta, Ike Iwuna. So they feel like they can go 4 or 5 deep, maybe 6 deep at defensive tackle. They brought in a linebacker from Georgia, Troy Bowles, who's the son of Todd Bowles of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. TJ Metcalf on the back end of their defense was an all SEC type of player at Arkansas. I think he's going to have a big role, whether he's starting at safety or starting at nickel or doing a little bit of both. His twin brother, Tevis, or not a twin brother, he's 1 year younger, has been a solid kind of depth piece for them at corner too. So they feel like they're not as top heavy on defense, and Wink Martindale has said this a few times. They might not have any first rounders in terms of NFL talent, but they feel like they have a lot of day two type of guys, and that they're deeper at some of those positions, because there was a bit of a drop off when, Will Johnson was injured last year, and there were edge guys that were not healthy at times. So they do feel like they're a little bit deeper, and the hope is that whatever drop off, and I don't think there is going to be much of a drop off there, they're hoping that a better offense is going to help them to maybe play a little, we hear the term complementary football all the time. It all works in unison, and Michigan didn't do a good enough job there last year. So offense has got to help those guys out, but I think they've got a lot of versatility and optionality with what their lineup looks like.
Yeah, one player actually, and I saw today, it kind of got put out there, the Rod Moore stuff. Is Rod Moore going to be ready for week 1 next week, or what's that whole timeline with him? Because I think he had surgery. Was it back in March or April? I believe, what was the timeline for him?
It's been a long process for him. So last March in spring ball, he tore his ACL. So he started his missed the whole season. He said about 8 to almost 9 months into his recovery, and the pain was still there when he would plant his foot. And what he said is that, when they did the initial surgery, they saw, there was a very small tear of the meniscus that they didn't think needed to be addressed with surgery. But there was still that discomfort there. So they decided to go in and repair that too. So that kicked his timeline back a little bit further to where now, in the last few weeks, he is, they've eased him back in. I think he is, we talked to him just before camp started. He was on our show at an NIL event, and he said he was about 80 to 85% going into camp. I don't know. He didn't put a number on it when we spoke to him today, but I tend to think that they're not going to play him in the opener, because you'd rather have Rod Moore at 100% for as much of the season as you can than bringing him back at 90%. Then maybe he tweaks something. I don't even know if we'll see him. They're super mum on it, and he's been super mum on it, because they want him healthy when they play Ohio State, or as healthy as he can be.
Yep.
If they can get it back for Oklahoma, that'd be great. I think probably a logical timeline for him, just me speculating, would be maybe that Big Ten opener when you go to Nebraska, or maybe he's been worked in a little bit and he's on a snap count, the first few weeks. And then maybe when Big Ten play rolls in, he's sort of unleashed there. So it'll be interesting to see, but he's going to be on the field, I think, sooner rather than later. It just might not be till, mid to late September.
Okay. Yeah, I did see that today. And I didn't realize there was a chance for him to fully potentially miss week 1. So that's good to know that. I do want to, last thing I have for you, Anthony, I want to get your kind of season, just outlook here. What do you predictions? I had said that, obviously the schedule is a little easier than it has been in the past. It feels like this season. I had said, I think they should be able to get out there and win 10 games. Obviously you want to see what the product that they put on the field the first few weeks to be able to fully feel that. What is your thought process on that? Do you see this being a college football playoff team?
Well, I actually wrote about this yesterday. I think there are 3 paths that this season can take. I think the magic number for them is 9-3. I think 9-3, even with a little bit of a lighter schedule, is gonna, you want to be. They talk about on the graphic all the time when they do their college football playoff show at the end of the year. You'd like to see that Michigan's on the graphic, either in the mix or that they were just on the cusp, on the outside looking in. Which might register as a disappointment if you're right there, depending on how the year goes. But 9-3 to me, and you're in the mix throughout, I think would be a good year for them. I think a great year for them is 10-2 plus the playoff or better.
Yep.
the 8-4 would be kind of hard to swallow, but it depends on what it looks like too. I think this defense is gonna be too good. I think the offense will be good enough, but you're also starting a guy who literally just turned 18 the other day at quarterback.
That's crazy to me still.
You've got to you got to ride with this guy, and he might have a game where you lose because of a mistake he makes. But I think the ultimate goal is you come out of this season feeling like, hey, we stack another good recruiting class and we attack that transfer portal and add a few guys. We are a contender in 26, and maybe we're one of the favorites to win it in 27. I think if you're Michigan, that's a pretty reasonable expectation, but I think this team has a chance to be playoff good too. I picked them to go 10-2, beat Ohio State for the 5th year in a row, make the college football playoff. And we put out our football preview magazine, which it could start a little rocky though. They've got those 3 tough road games early on. It's not out of the realm of possibility they start 4-2, but that back half of the schedule, starting with a home game against Washington, and then you play 4 teams who are projected to finish in the bottom half of the Big Ten. That's going to be a nice runway to them where I think they'll be as ready as they can for that Ohio State game come that last weekend in November.
I like the fact you have them beating Ohio State for the 5th straight year. That's going to be something. And I believe that's in Ann Arbor this year, correct?
It is. It's funny. When you're in a losing streak, you feel like you're never, ever going to win that game again. And then once you've won 4 years in a row, especially last year, you win as a 3-touchdown underdog, you feel like you're never going to lose again. So, but I think that, both of these teams, I think are going to look a lot different when they play that game than they do to start the year. So it's going to be another slugfest, another heavyweight fight. We'll see if there's a fight on the field again. Nothing surprises me anymore, but
something's going to happen.
I think that Michigan is built to exploit what I think will be weak about this year's Ohio State team, which is why I picked the way I did.
That.
I won't get any controversy here. Matt Patricia is terrible.
I keep forgetting, Anthony. I keep forgetting he's their DC. That's one of the craziest hires I think of the offseason in any sport. Is Matt Patricia being the defensive coordinator at Ohio State? That's it's nuts. Hey, I appreciate you though, Anthony, hopping on the show. We got to get you on at some point throughout the season as the season starts to progress, and it's week 0 this week, so college football is back. I'm pumped up for that. I've been waiting for it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for having me, and we'll talk again soon.
Perfect. Thanks, Anthony.
Later.
All right, there you have it. Anthony Broom on 3 covers the Michigan Wolverines. Hey, Anthony. If you're a Michigan fan, even if you're not a Michigan fan, college football fan, just trying to keep up with what's going on here in the Big Ten and with Michigan, Anthony does a great job. He's one of the best in the game at it. The boys actually met him when we were in Indianapolis a couple of years ago at the Combine. Just a great dude at the end of the day, and he does a great job covering the team. So shout out to everyone today. I know it was a long show. We had 3 guests. I had a blast. Nolan, Dosa, Dion, Anthony. Let's finish it off here. We have 7 more minutes. We'll hit some mailbag questions. Drop all of you guys' mailbag questions. You can ask anything. I may or may not answer it though. So just be prepared for that. If there's some good questions, I'll ask them or answer them. Honcho, shout out to Honcho Logan, absolute legend. He said top 5 edge rushers in the NFL. This one's easy for me. Number 1, Aiden Hutchinson. Number 2, TJ Watt. Number 3, Myles Garrett. Number 4, Max Crosby, and then at 5, I have Micah Parsons. There's something about Micah Parsons to me. I think I just hate the guy. I'll just say it. I hate in the NBA. In the NBA, I hate Joel Embiid. Michael Parsons is my Joel Embiid in the NFL. And Logan said, brother, TJ is better than Hutch. Listen, I have been one of the people the last 3 years, one of the only people in the world that has said TJ Watt isn't just only the best defensive player in football. I've said TJ Watt is the best football player on the planet. On the planet. But at some point, I have to plant my flag and say, give me Aiden Hutchinson. That's this year. And Honcho, you're going to see at the end of the season, I know at one point there's going to be a point of the season you're looking at me and go, yeah, you were right. And TJ is good. I think Hutch is just that good as well. I think both of them are at that level. I really do. Hey, Nate, shout out to Nate Paulson joining the show. Absolute legend as well. He said, Mailbag Booner. You've been running the show this week solo in the trenches. With that said, any specific place you would like to bury the doc from Wednesday's debate? A lot of real estate available. I'll tell you what, I know where I want to put the doc. I would bury the doc after that debate at the 50-yard line at the big house. He can go right there. That's where the doc will go. That's exactly where the doc would go. Steve Lehman said, which one of you in the group said Lions won't make the Super Bowl? That's Lukas Klotz. I'll say it, Lukas Klotz. And he actually he texted a group chat, our big group chat that we have with all the other fellas early on Wednesday morning when I was driving into work at like 6 a.m. And I had to let him know, like, hey, this is what it is. I think people see the coordinators, and a lot of people want to have these hot takes about like, oh, I want to be the right one in the room. Yeah, and that's obviously the percentage is low to win a Super Bowl. But if you've seen this team, this defense, the way they look, and then the offense isn't really slowing down at all. It's like, why are, I mean, you can get them at a discounted price right now to win the Super Bowl compared to last season. Honcho said it's fair, but it's biased. Yeah, no, it probably is a little bit. There's probably a side of that. But I mean, you can't tell me this. Listen, this is my logic, Honcho. Is it hot? Logan, I don't know if it's Honcho or Honch 07, but I like the Honcho better, man. It's 100 times better. Honcho sounds sick. You can't. No one can deny this. You can't deny that when Aiden Hutchinson went down last year, he was the best defensive player in the NFL at that current moment in Week 5. He was. When you got to like week 11 or 12, he still was like top 5 in pressures and sacks at that point. So you can't deny that. And the fact, my logic is he went down, he was the best defensive player. Now today, people are saying, and reports are, and I've seen it in person too, he right now looks better than he did when he went down in Week 5. So if he was in Week 5 the best defensive player in the NFL, and now he's better, it's pretty simple logic. 1 + 1 = 2. Coach Walk said, beer of choice, craft, domestic, import, what flavor? We actually currently don't have a beer sponsor at the moment, so I will say when we go out and we have drinks, I order a Miller Lite. That's my go-to is Miller Lite. I'm drinking Miller Lite. That's every single time. That's my beer of choice. But obviously, there may or may not be some sponsors in the work of different beers, and beer in general is good, but at the moment, that's where for years I've just gone Miller Lite. So, Nate said, I love it, man. Salute. Yeah, put the doc, bury this man at the big house. Xavier D. Booner, do you think you're ready for that improv show now? I'll set you up at a Go Theater. I will, listen, Xavier D, I will do improv at some point. You got to give me a couple months. Maybe we can have a conversation, and when the Lions seasons and the Lions win the Super Bowl and things slow down, maybe we could talk about an improv class. Because I would like to, I've had the conversation on the show. I still would like to do one of my goals. I would like to try stand-up one time and improv. I don't even know what I would be doing in improv, but I'm there. I'll do it. One of my goals in life has always been to be in a movie or a TV show. So I would love to do that. It'll happen at some point. I'm confident of it. All right, let's see what other mailbags do we have. Hancho said Corona or Coors Light. Corona. I'll go Corona with a lime for sure. Easy said Go Theater is where I take every first date. Imagine Easy if you take a girl on a first date and up on the stage, I just come out and I start doing something. That would be unbelievable. I start doing like stand-up or something. Adis, here we go. Jay Hart, how do you feel about the linemen in motion? And what is the ceiling floor do you see this new line secondary? The linemen in motion, are we talking about today at practice when they had Penei Sewell move over and completely go into motion on the other side, standing next to Taylor Decker, Brock Roy, and Sam Laporta? That was unbelievable. And the floor, what is the ceiling of floor do you see at this new Lions secondary? I think the floor, honestly, is like a top 10 secondary. I do. I think it is. And I think the ceiling is a top 3 secondary with what they have. Easy said you skipped mine. I didn't skip it. I didn't see it, Easy. Throw another one in there. I'll get to it here. I'm scrolling. I'm scrolling here. Don't worry. I skipped Easy. Did I skip Easy? I don't think I did. Did I skip it? What did I skip? Keep dropping some mailbag. Oh, I guess it's 10 o'clock now, man. Hey, this show's flying by. I've had a blast today. I'm not going to lie. I'm having a good time. I'm having a great time. Maybe we keep going. I don't know. It's 10 o'clock. Improv as actors smart enough to realize they're not convicted enough to be comedians. And okay, well, a tar. Come on now, let's stop hating. ELE, everybody love everybody. I was waiting for Easy to. I didn't know what his was. I was waiting for him to drop a second one real quick. I'll give it 10 more seconds, 30 seconds, if he drops his mailbag. I'll wait a second here. Shout out to, I just want to throw one last shout out to the guys that hopped on the show today. Nolan Bianchi, that was a great conversation with him. Good dose of Dion, had a good day at camp with Dion and Easy. And then shout out to Anthony Broom as well for hopping on talking Michigan football. I have not talked Michigan football all off season, and I feel like I'm disappointed not talking Michigan football. So I'm glad to have Anthony on and do that. Easy said, what did the other guys say about Graham? I think Nolan was kind of like a lot of the guys, and even Dion had the same thing to where it's just like, Easy, I don't think it's more so like, hey, it's worrisome. Is the injury bad or not? The thing of me being like, hey, this is worrying is the fact that it's Graham Glasgow. It's your starting center. And the thing that me and Dion kind of agreed on was like, they're like, it's his knee. A knee is just like, you can walk off the field and have an ACL. Like Dion said the same thing. Dion was like, I walked off the field with an ACL. Their quarterback, he has walked off the field. Like, you can do that. So it's just like, let's get the test done and see. I think that was kind of the sentiment of what everyone's feeling right now, to where it's like, hey, we just got to wait and see at this point. I don't know if anyone saw that he looked fine or not, or what it was, but anytime that there's trainers and they're looking at a knee, it just always, I'm not saying it's a big deal, Easy. Never was, but just more so like it's your starting center. So, all right, I'm ending it there. I'm done. I'm ready. I'm ready to get ready for tomorrow. We have a big show tomorrow. Michael Gentry will be on the show tomorrow with me, I believe. Chris Castellani will be joining for the second hour of the show. He'll be on the whole time. We'll be talking Lions, Tigers, Michigan football. We're going to talk everything with Chris Castellani. It should be a good time. So I appreciate everyone joining today. Make sure you guys hit the like button, subscribe, all of that fun stuff. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. All right. I love you all. Everyone have a great night. Peace.